Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today's episode, you know who it's brought to you by. It's brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee. Let's go to their website right now and see what they have to offer. The rotating banner is back. The first thing I'm looking at is Hippo Elite, which is an ultra-limited coffee collaboration with Tim Kennedy. Interesting. I don't know why Tim considers himself to be a hippo, and I say this because I don't think most people know this. Hippos have the smallest penis of any mammal. And I don't know what that has to do with coffee or Tim Kennedy, but it is what it is. So if you're interested in the Hippo Elite, obviously head right over and shop now. What else do we have? Joining the coffee club. I hit this one almost every time. You can get 20% off when you start a coffee subscription using the code COFFEE20. The coffee you want on the frequency that you want, delivered to where you want. I mean, it's kind of perfect. And then, oh man, I posted about this the other day. BRCC did a documentary, The Siege at Quezon. Grab a cup of coffee, sit down, watch that sucker. These people, I swear, they need a wheelbarrow for the size of their balls. I just don't know how they get around. Unbelievable. As we scroll down, there's the banner, not a banner, it's a sliding bar from light to dark coffee. You can explore everything they have to offer. As we rotate down, we're going to find the apparel and the gear, the coffee bundles and the coffee sampler, and then, yes, the best sellers. The Freedom Roast, delightful. I'm looking at that right now. Freedom Fuel Roast is good, and AK is actually the baseline of coffee at our coffee shop. So you can find anything you want. You can find their social media links. Really just go to town and find everything that you need coffee related at their website. My guest today is Kara Henning. And our communication started off over an email. And I'm just going to read to you a little bit of it right now because it caught my attention, and I think you'll understand why immediately. She spent 20 plus years of her life chasing money as a pharma medical sales rep. Yep, she says, tight dresses, high heels, and cupcake delivery runs. I am sure you have seen my fellow high-class street hookers all the time in primary care doctors' offices. And I've seen them on TV shows. Specifically, the one I'm thinking of was Painkillers by Peter Berg. And it really focuses on the role of this individual in our medical industry and ecosystem, if you will. Had a COVID career crisis, full mental breakdown. Obviously, dealing with that, she had no job, no home, no company, no car, no health care. Rented a U-Haul, moved to Montana, volunteered at Heroes and Horses, run by Micah Fink, which I have had on the show. Fantastic episode, even better mustache from that individual. Legendary Dick Broom. I mean, Wyatt Earp would be, praising that man's stash. Working there as in the kitchen, dove into psychedelics, 2 Ibogaine trips, Peyote with Native Americans, Ayahuasca with first responders. Getting ready to go to 3 weeks in the jungle at a women's retreat in Peru with 9 ayahuasca ceremonies. And then lateral her life to becoming a woodland firefighter. Or I'm sorry, not woodland, wildland firefighter. Maybe there's some overlap there because I feel like wildland firefighters fight woodland fires. But, sometimes words escape me. I couldn't respond fast enough. Yes, I want to talk to this person. This is exactly why I love hosting this podcast. Interesting people talking about things that have happened in their life, what they did with them, how they grew, how they moved through them. And I'm going to shut up. Let's get into this. Episode 320 with Kara Henning. Enjoy.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north or south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. Get cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
I've never seen somebody, there's 2 pages there of notes, right?
Yeah.
Front and back?
Front, back, yeah.
Holy
yeah.
fuck.
Some of it was rewriting. Because I feel like it's such a big opportunity. I'm like, I just don't want to, I really want to stand up for our first responders. That's my
What
big
if
intention.
I don't want to talk about any of the stuff you have written down?
Then we'll wing it.
All right, pull that sucker closer to your mouth.
A little closer?
A little bit. You can rotate it too. Just rotate it. There you
Okay.
go. Very directional. Awesome.
Yep.
Where would you like to begin? Because I know where I want to start.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where'd you get that hat?
Always taking shit for this hat. I take a lot of shit for this hat, actually.
Let me tell you why.
Yeah.
You'd probably
Thirsty?
You'd probably never catch a seal wearing one.
Yep.
The closest I ever got, and this was when I was brand new. I had an all black hat with a black trident embroidered on it. So it was like black on black.
Yeah.
And then eventually everybody kind of threw those away a little bit. It's an odd showpiece, if you will.
Yeah.
Tell me the backstory.
Girlfriend gave it to me.
Where'd she get it?
I don't know, actually.
I can guess.
Yeah. Banging a dude, maybe.
I mean, let's hope it was singular.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the option. It could have been plural, but
Might have been. I started kind of leaning into first responder, veteran PTSD work, and she's like, "I just want you to have this hat. I think you should have it." Like, just kind of randomly, and I was like, "Okay."
it was after you kind of started focusing on the post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
Post-traumatic stress. Okay.
Started kind of getting into that world, and she's like, "I think you should have this hat," and I was like, "Okay," and I felt very weird wearing it. It took me like probably a year before I even got comfortable with it.
Okay.
Because it brings attention and, asks a lot of questions, and I wasn't sure how to navigate those questions. But the more I started like growing into my journey, my purpose, the easier it was for me to start conversations. So now I use it as a great conversation piece, and whether it's someone that's served or someone that, just wants to know why I have it.
Do people ask you if you are a SEAL or were a SEAL?
Yeah, more than usual, which to my understanding, there's no female SEAL.
That they know of.
Yeah.
Can I offer a suggestion?
Yeah.
Say yes.
Okay.
You were in Bud's class 221.
Okay.
That would have been a summer class. So you went through, I'm going to give you details so you can get past the initial question. So you were in class 221. That would have been, let me see here. So class is a year. That would have been in 1998.
All right.
Let's say you started with, call it 210 people, 30 graduated. It's not a big deal. Let me see here. You started off. Michael, what do you think? Pick a number between 1 and 10.
7.
Do you want to turn your microphone on before you actually say that? Go ahead. Let's try this again. Let's be adults.
7.
Good. Thank you. Okay. So 7. So you started off on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Here's a problem, Michael. SEAL Team 7, and this is how you catch motherfuckers. They'll be like, yeah, I was at SEAL Team 3 in Vietnam. I go, really? In Vietnam in the 70s? They're like, yeah. I was over there with Team 3. I was like, well, can you help me with this little conundrum? And that is, SEAL Team 3 was created in 1980. So how exactly were you serving with them in 1970, fill in the blank? So pick another number between 1 and 10.
2.
Okay. East Coast. One of the originals, created in 1941, January specifically. All right. So you spent your time on Little Creek.
Okay.
You stayed in for, call it 8 years. Got a little bit of post 9/11 time in there. Deployment to Afghanistan, deployment to Iraq.
I like it.
Do you want to be enlisted or an officer?
Officer.
I mean, that's a shitty choice, but okay. Got out as a lieutenant.
Sounded good.
Yeah. You got out as a lieutenant after doing your OIC tour, and there you go. Just make shit up.
Yeah.
But you'll be okay with the vast majority of that information.
All right. It's enough.
There's a lot of tells. Those are the first. I mean, any SEAL would say, hey, what Bud's class are you in? That's the initial one.
Sure.
And it's amazing. People will start saying 1 Foxtrot Charlie Alpha. I'm like, oh yeah. Or my Bud's class was classified. I'm like, oh, fuck, here we go. And then it's what team are you at and where was that team at? So there you go. You're ready.
Nice.
Use that if you want to. Don't if you don't. I'm not responsible for anything that happens after you say yes to somebody about being a SEAL.
Sure.
And those were just suggestions.
Okay. It works as a good defense mechanism, too. I think it guards off men a little bit.
You think so?
You're like, she's probably banging a SEAL. I'm like, let's go with that. Yeah. It's
I don't know if that defends you against anything.
Maybe. Intimidation a little bit.
You haven't met many SEALs, have you?
A few. Yeah.
There's a lot of them that you wouldn't be intimidated by.
That is true.
You know what I mean?
A few that I meet, I'm like,
Yeah.
wouldn't have seen that coming.
Some of them are more gelatinous than others, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice way of saying they're fat fucks, but my words, not yours.
Yeah.
Okay. Your email, when you reached out, was fascinating to me. And I'm actually very fascinated, and I hope we can talk a little bit about what you did before going into the Wildland world.
Sure.
And I do definitely want to talk about why you chose to do that and the journey you've kind of gone on when it comes to first responders, post-traumatic stress, and all of those things. Mm-hmm. But talk to me about the first 20 years of your professional career.
Sure.
Because I was instantly like, okay, we should have a chat.
Yeah. It's an interesting story. So I grew up Detroit suburbs, not a ton of money. Whole family, school teachers have always been the black sheep. Money was always a topic of frustration. So when I was young, I'm like, I definitely don't want to be broke. So
Did you realize that you were broke when you were young?
a little bit, yeah,
Like comparatively to other people?
yeah, not I was a little bit lower than like most of my friends. Like
Okay.
we'd go skiing, and my mom would be like, no, like I got invited to go to homecoming early when I was young, and I was super excited, and I wanted my mom to like go take me to the mall and buy a dress, and I
Wasn't happening.
Yeah, she's like, how many lawns are you gonna mow? I'm like, oh, it's not what I was hoping for, but I was always hustling, always chasing a buck, paper routes, babysitting, working in the mall, like anything I could do, turned into waitressing, whatnot. So always on the run for money.
In hindsight, do you view that as a good thing? That the work ethic and the realization that if you want something, you're going to have to hustle and work for it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's so important to understand the value of money.
Yeah.
And as much as I wanted to grow up with a silver spoon, the one thing I always say is I am so grateful I am not Bill Gates' daughter, because how would you ever know if a dude really loves you?
How would you ever know that people are beyond a guy? How would you know that anybody is actually treating you like a normal human being?
Yeah.
And I think it's safe to say that Bill Gates has like nuclear grade autism,
Yeah.
like national defense levels. So, and I'm sure there was a portion of his life where I think there was a time where he was the richest man in the world for a long period of time, but I don't think he was born that way. So at least he saw the change and what that was for him in his life and things that he interacted with. Yeah. If you're born into that, I don't know if you actually have a real optic on the world around you.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And I've heard stories too where people are like, oh, I just get invited because I'm going to pay for dinner. And,
That sucks.
Yeah, that sucks. But I think as a chick, dating, it sucks even more. I mean, it's tough.
I'll have to take your word on that.
Yeah. So I think the value of earning money and learning how to balance it, budget it, is incredibly valuable. So I appreciate that.
I would agree.
So when it came time for college, I almost went into the Air Force. That was kind of on the radar. Military was always interesting to me. Loved the discipline. Loved just a lot of kind of what it stood for. But I'm like, I think I'm going to go business instead. So it's one of those situations where you're going to go, business, Air Force. I'm like, I'm just going to do business. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I did, because it got me to where I am. Right out of college, fumbled quite a few times with random jobs, and that was a hard lesson because I thought I had this like golden ticket. I'm like, here I go. I'm going to have all this money. I've got this business degree. It's going to be great. And it was a very hard 5 years post-college. Eventually, I got into United Healthcare, worked for 2 years on the insurance side as an account manager, worked in the small business segment where I would renew small business accounts. And that gave me a taste of kind of inside, outside sales. Mm-hmm. And from there, I was at my dentist's office and getting a cleaning. And I just asked them, I was like, hey, do you guys have like reps that come in? I had some friends that had done pharmaceutical sales. They were going down that route. I'm like, do you have like those kind of reps? And they're like, we do, a few of them. And they gave me 5 or 6 business cards, called all of them. I was in my young 20s, didn't really know how to network too well. And, nothing happened. And then sure enough, like 6 months later, my dentist called me and he's like, hey, do you remember you're asking blah, blah, blah. Someone's got an opening, can we connect you together? I'm like, absolutely. So from there, I started my medical career more on the dental side.
Okay. So you were essentially a pharmaceutical rep in the dental sphere?
Yeah.
Have you seen the Peter Berg Netflix series Painkiller? Mm-hmm. And this is the optic that I have no idea whether or not it's accurate.
Yeah.
And for anybody who hasn't seen it, fuck, it's great. It's about the Sackler family.
Must see.
Yeah, it's kind of about the Sackler family. It's kind of about OxyContin. It's kind of about how it destroyed people and the addictive nature.
Yeah.
And it's kind of about how they sold that to doctors. And I will broadly describe it as they went and found at colleges, it seemed like, young women
Yeah.
who were motivated to sell and earn money. And I don't know where any of the legalities lie with all of this, what you can do and what you can't do. But it seemed like they would start off relatively poor, and then they were in a Porsche. And then they had people working underneath them who had people working underneath them. And I'm just curious, what was your experience like?
Yeah, very much so. In my letter, I think I used the term street hooker.
You did use the term street hooker.
Yeah, a classy one.
So as a rep in the dental space, what were you actually selling? Was it equipment or was it medication?
All across the board. I had changed companies quite a bit. So I first worked in Chicago, then I went over to New York, then went over to California, and then Arizona. And probably around like the 3 to 5 year mark as a sales rep, it turns into Groundhog's Day. You either want new products or you want new territory lines. Like if you're doing the same thing over and over, it's hard to hit those numbers.
With the same people over and over, I'm assuming too?
Yeah. Yeah. So you want change. So my original company that I started with was dental whitening was their claim to fame. But we had a catalog with over 200 products and more of on the supply side. So not so much pharmaceutical.
Okay.
Second company I jumped to was more of the traditional pharmaceutical. Nestle owned us. It was the parent company of Alcon. They have all the eye drops. So if it was glaucoma medication or post LASIK surgery, prescription eye drops for allergies, that's where I was at.
So as somebody, let's start with the dental world. So you're trying to grab or monopolize a few minutes or an hour of the dentist's time to pitch him on particular things. Yeah. And are you guys straight commission based?
That one was, or actually I had a little bit of a base.
Okay.
Some companies are 1099 where, if you're selling like an x-ray in a hospital, you might be just straight commission, and get a huge commission.
You mean an x-ray machine?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a mixture. Just depends on the company. Most of them have a decent base, but they're going to give you some really good commissions or bonuses. So you're obviously going to, jump for those carrots more.
And then how about when you transition over to the more pharmaceutical centric side? Same thing?
Yeah. Good base.
So it seemed like, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the painkiller series, it seemed like the rep was getting a scrape every time the doctor was writing a script. Is that correct?
Usually, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll have numbers. They're well documented of where the numbers are coming from. They can see who's writing them, and you have specific sales goals too.
Does the doctor get a scrape, or would
usually not?
Okay,
They
I feel
usually
like
don't.
that would be totally fucked up, and in the same breath, I feel like that would fit directly into our current healthcare system.
Yeah, it seems like it. There is, there are ways to get a kickback if you're a speaker for the company.
Which that is in the
Yeah.
painkiller series as well. That's actually how they saved OxyContin, and it started blowing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I should take a pause and say that, I'm probably going to talk some shit today about Big Pharma, about reps, about
Yes.
the VA, about
Let's start
doctors,
right now with that.
And I've worked with very nice people, very nice sales reps, very nice managers. So I try not to talk in absolutes that everyone's a dickhead. They're not. But there are plenty of dickheads in there. And it's more so the higher up you go, the worse it gets. And like anything, you need that year-over-year growth. 10%, 20%. I remember the last company that I was with, we had a medication for gum disease, and it was COVID. And we had a great team. We bonded very well together. But I sat down with my boss, and it was like, as everyone's planning their new year, like the boards are forecasting, all these people that are tied into vaccines or anything with COVID, no one's going to say, hey, you know what? We've made like 50% growth this year. Like, let's just sit this one out. Like, we're good. Like, let's just take it on a 0%, year over year. Like, no,
Bottom line is not going to accept that.
No, board's not going to accept it. Got to make more money. And it always comes down to more money.
I mean, the first few years that you you start a brand new business, your sales numbers that year over the previous year are going to be spectacular.
Yeah.
Thousands of % growth.
Yeah.
The second year, you're going to trend more towards reality, but you're still going to have hundreds % growth, assuming you're running your business well.
Yeah.
So, expecting a 10 to 20% year over year, that's not that bad when you start. But didn't you do this for almost 20 years?
Yeah.
How did you maintain those numbers? And
That's why
what
I
I'm
left.
that's what I'm fascinated in.
Yeah.
How far do they push it?
Real far. It's, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Sales rep is only as good as their number. And I've lost jobs, I've kept jobs, they're merging, they're changing. If you get a new product, that helps, but it is brutal. And you get into some pressure cookers and, you're in it. And I don't think people are really compromising that much, but they have a goal, and the goal is to get in there. And women that I used to get asked as a sales rep, people in the office said, like, do you have to be attractive to be a pharmaceutical rep? I get that question a lot, and the unfiltered answer is absolutely. Sex sells. I don't know.
How
it's the
often,
truth,
though, and we can use this broadly, I'm not asking you personally, but how often would it go to that point?
Flirting, you're always in a dress, you're always looking good, schmoozing the doctor. Doctors like to talk to pretty girls. Now men do really well too. It's a different advantage. Men do well with the women at the front desk. And
the guard, the sentry.
Yeah, there's different, absolutely. It's like there's different ways to get into the office. So, maybe a girl can be, super cute and charming and, charismatic. And because the doctors are just in their grind, and in their defense, they're in a shitty system. The average primary care doctor has 7 minutes, they're burning through 40 patients a day, and you just don't have much time. And the doctors might have, $500,000 in loans. It's very common, so it's like they're part of the system and they're sucked in. I had one doctor, I used to work for Invisalign in Los Angeles. One doctor killed himself. He was in the pressure cooker, and that was his only way out. And it's sad. And that debt passes down to your family.
Does it really?
It's unexcusable. Yeah, with medical.
So if you did it for 20 years, looking back on it, how long of that would you say that you enjoyed it?
Maybe 30%. There were some good times. Don't get me wrong. Like, I was living in New York City, in Manhattan. I had a company car, SUV, parked in a garage that was $800 a month just to park it. People don't have cars in New York.
No.
I had an expense account. I took a top doctor out to Nobu, dropping $3,000 down for her and her 10 family members, Like, I went to all the best restaurants in New York. Like, I had some good times. But you're not out with your friends. It's still work. You still have business to do. And you're also filtered, where it's like somewhere in my head I got it that I had to be like the weather lady, where it's like, hair's good, body's good, like, we're happy, we're presenting, like, you're never having a bad day, nobody cares, don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics, like, let's just keep it nice and vanilla, everyone's happy. And the longer I got into it, the worse it got. And I think for me at the very end is like when I tapped out is when the pronouns started coming in, where I was like, this is what I'm not gonna fucking do. Like, I've been filtered for so long and I don't feel authentic. And the more and more I saw what was behind the curtain, I'm like, this is a dirty fucking business. And I don't feel good about myself. And I was single, always having a hard time dating. I was really picky. I didn't want to date a guy that, made less money than me. I'm making like 150-ish, give or take, 120, somewhere around there. So that eliminated a lot of people. But I'm not into social media at all. Never have been.
You're not missing out on anything.
Nothing. But if I was, my life probably would have looked pretty perfect,
Yeah.
10, 20% of the time I was happy. Great girlfriends, going to brunch, taking awesome vacations, but 80% of me was kind of miserable. You know, you have to go to 8 offices a day, you're driving around, you're trying to just navigate everything, and it's just a grind, and you're fake. You know, I'm like, I just want to be authentic. So like when the pronouns came in, I just felt like I was tiptoeing on everything already. And I think that's just what tipped the scales where I'm like, I got to get out of this business. Like, I just can't do it. And the sales reps joke around about the golden handcuffs. You know, we're like, how are you going to get out? How are you going to get out? You know, and you can't necessarily make lateral moves. It's hard. It's really hard. And so the last company I was with, they had all kinds of drama with the DOJ. They were going through a lawsuit. Ended up settling, for $300 million. It was the third time they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar.
What were they doing?
Well, the first time companies switch and merge, and they just move the money. It's all the same shit. So the company originally started off as J&J. Obviously, the opioid situation. Moved over to Valiant, which was huge, like scandals, insider trading, like all kinds of stuff. The third one that I was with, the DOJ got them for withholding a diabetes medication, and they did 800% markup. And and a bunch of like 15
Holy
reps.
Shit.
Yeah, 15 reps got fired. I had to do like depositions. It was a year during COVID too, when the lockdowns were, and I just had those interviews put me in a tailspin, and I had some personal stuff happening too, where I went into a full fucking spiral. Like, it just was like the perfect storm of two things happening. And I was like, I've got to get out. I've got to get out. And so fire was interesting to me. I took a EMT course, and I was working at the same time. I was failing miserably. I'm not really book smart. Like when I, went through all the pharma trainings and whatnot, sometimes you're there 2 weeks, sometimes you're there a month. You have to learn all the science, and so you can detail and whatnot. I was always the bottom of the class. I was,
Do you have to learn the science, or you have to be able to repeat what the science says?
Kind of both. You have to go toe-to-toe with doctors, so they can call bullshit pretty well. And some doctors do it on purpose. They're like, oh, I'm going to fuck with this chick. Like, see what she knows.
Going backwards to the dinner you're talking about, where you're, at Nobu with the doctor and 10 family members, what is the expectation on both sides of that, from the doctor and from the rep? The rep is, I'm assuming, looking to get out of the doctor prescriptions or using their item.
Yep.
The doctor is just there for a free meal. I mean, it's like, I mean, there's obviously no written contract. Is there a handshake? Like, how does this go down? Because I asked that because you weren't the only rep, and I'm sure that they went to dinners with other people. So what? It's just like you get like a hard maybe. I mean, you're closing them. You know the numbers, so you're always following up. And you might have a book of business that's 100 accounts, 200 accounts, but it's kind of the 80-20 rule. You're really only usually targeting like the top ones, or the ones you think you can move. A lot of them are duds or maintenance or whatever, but those top ones, you go to dinner and you better be in there Monday or Tuesday, like, hey, how are we doing this week? What are the surgeries looking like? Or what kind of patients do you have? Or you work with their office staff to flag charts of patients that might be candidates. And so usually... Holy shit.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole thing. I mean, you're buttering up the office staff to like navigate.
So like the cupcakes and donuts and coffee thing is real?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. In Painkillers, when the two chicks are in the red dress and they're like... I'm like... I was cringing. I think that's when I stopped watching it, because I'm like, this is just...
A little bit too close to home?
Yeah, I'm like, this is me. I'm like, I just hated it. I hated it at that point, and...
Random non sequitur question. How come you couldn't date a guy that made less money than you?
I would emasculate him. Because it's like, I need you to be a
just
value add.
Just because of the money? What if he was a value add in some other way?
He could be. Yeah. And I'm super open to that now. Yeah. Absolutely.
There's some amazing people out there, like some crazy deep thinkers, probably philosophy major, fucking hucking lattes at Starbucks, because I don't know what you get for a philosophy degree.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just was curious about that. It's not something I've ever, I don't know. I guess it's the expectation that the guy is supposed, I don't think about that stuff that much.
I think as a chick, like, you're always kind of trying to date up a little bit, I think.
But you're only talking about one perspective, and that's the
Totally.
monetary.
Yeah. It's, for me...
What if it was Fabio, but he was homeless?
Hard pass.
Michael, do you know who Fabio is?
Yeah, you've asked me this before.
Okay. God, he wouldn't have known. By the way, his pronouns are he, him.
Perfect.
So,
He, shim.
yeah, shim.
Okay.
I didn't want to say she because that would have been,
He, she.
yeah, he, him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, I was a brat. I was a total brat when it came to what I wanted in life, what I was chasing.
Yeah.
Money, it buys comfort for sure. Not happiness, but comfort, yes.
Money buys things, and some things can provide comfort.
Yeah.
But not in your loneliest moments.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think I thought it would. I was like, well, if I can just find,
I think a lot of people think that.
Yeah, I want a nice, successful man, makes a little bit more money, and then I'll be on the up and up. And, we're just sold this fake bill of goods where it's like, what you're going to do is crunch some widgets every day, make a bunch of money, get a house, 2.5 kids, and the white picket fence, and happily ever after. And it's just not the case. And I think after a while, I'm just like chasing money. And I felt like I had no soul. I'm like, I can't fucking do this. Like, I need to have some value for myself.
Do you ever think the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids, do you ever think that ever was good enough? Or is that just the bullshit that people said so nobody would ask them more questions?
I think it's the bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's the bullshit. And the statistics, I think, that are most Americans are divorced, obese, and less than $1,000 in the bank account.
Yeah, it's rough. What's the saying? 9 meals away from a catastrophe, which is essentially 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the way, like, unless you kind of push.
That was the American dream. I would say not for my parents.
Yeah.
Maybe not completely for theirs, but I think definitely the generation before that. Husband's working, wife stay at home, like you said, the 2.5 kids, which I'm not sure how that's possible. Cooking dinner, martini in your hand when you get home, and like that's fulfillment. I don't know if it ever actually was.
Yeah.
I think we just tell ourselves some bullshit stuff to justify our own problems and situations.
Yeah, we do. We do. And you know who really fucked this up is women. Women kind of fuck themselves with this whole expectation.
So I just want to be clear, even though our voices don't sound alike, that was not me that said that, and it wasn't Michael.
Yes.
So
coming from a woman, I'll own it. It's a cautionary tale. I've seen women just be like, oh, I can have it all. I can do it. I can have the business. I can have my family. I can have my husband. It's like, you can try. You can try, but what you should do is put yourself in that top 1%. I'm not saying it can't be done.
Yeah.
But you are setting yourself up for such high expectations as a female. And I've seen women just like abandon the career and do like, I'm going to do the stay-at-home mom and just lean all the way into my family.
I've seen the reverse of that. People who think since birth, and I have, what I'm about to say, I don't have any judgment against this. And if people feel this way, pursue your dreams. But I know a lot of people who said before they had kids and were a stay-at-home mom that's all they wanted to do in life.
Yeah.
And at a certain point in that journey, and I'm only repeating what I have heard people say, is that they felt like they lost a sense of who they were, lost a sense of their purpose. They felt like they were invisible in the world. And it was horrendous amounts of unhappiness. And I don't want that for anybody.
Yeah. I've seen it play out both ways.
Yeah.
Because if you're a woman trying to balance all three, the one girl I worked with specifically, she's like, I feel like I'm 30% everything. She's like, I would love to half-ass every department. She's like, but I'm like 30% wife, 30% mom, 30% employee. She's like, I'm not even fucking crushing it in one department like I'd love to be.
What was the other 10%?
Oh, I don't know. Whoops. Not working on math.
I'm just saying. Something was left out there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like I said, remedial table. No. Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
But
maybe she was just leaving the last 10% for the unknown. That's what I would do.
Yeah. But it's a tough gig for a woman. I mean, and the ones that do stay at home, they're like, well, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. It's like, not just. Like, there's so much honor in that.
I think life is a tough gig for everybody, male or female. I think that, And I don't know where the different roles and responsibilities and expectations came from, well before my time.
Yeah.
But stuff was passed down. Life is going to kick you in the teeth regardless of what you do and, what side of the gender line you fall on. And depending on how many lines you think that there may be. It's a weird world that we live in.
I mean, they're lessons, obstacles away.
Yeah.
Big believer in that, You got to get off victim. My pet peeve is victim.
Feeling like you're a victim?
Yeah.
How do you, when somebody has been the victim of something, how do you justify that thought with them? Say they're a victim of domestic violence or assault. I mean, they have been victimized.
Yep.
How do you approach them and try to talk them out of that victim mindset?
You got to do the work. 50% of every problem is yourself.
I would say that's a low percentage for most people, for most problems.
Yeah. I mean, you have to realize, like, okay, where did I misstep in this equation? If someone's
So I'll add a variable to this. It's a kid that's being abused by their parents. They didn't misstep.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think you're allowed to be a victim for a little bit because you absolutely were. I know you've said in the past, your trauma.
You are not responsible for the trauma that happens to you, but you are 100% responsible for dealing with it and what you do with it. Yep. And that's how God, I hate the statistics on the abuse of children.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It's like I would love for somebody to try to justify to me beating the shit out of a kid. Oh, they wouldn't be quiet. Maybe because they were hungry or tired or they wanted your attention or love, whatever it may be. But you can't also then take that abuse and justify when you have your own kids treating them in the same way. Yep. It's tough. It's easy to say. Yeah. I think it's very difficult to do. And I would agree with you. You have to do the work. Mm-hmm. And I think what's challenging is some people can get more out of less work. And for some people, it's a lifelong, never-ending process.
Yes. Yeah. I've been through a decent amount of therapy in my life. Just kind of checking in, like a bad breakup or, in a tough funk. When I left New York, I moved to California. It was the first time I tried to get out of pharmaceutical sales. I really went into like a dark, dark place. Took Lexapro for like 4 months.
I don't even know what that is.
SSRI, antidepressant.
Okay.
One of the most popular.
How did that make you feel?
It's weird. It takes the swing off things. I heard somebody recently say, this is the way, I liked how they described it, that if you're at a 1 to 10 scale, it kind of just pushes you into the 4 to the 6. It's like, let's take the 1s and the 3s off and, the 7s and the 10s so you don't have those big swings.
So kind of just flatline.
Yeah, it's like you just got like when you bowl and you have your bumper lanes in, it's like, let's just put some barricades in so you're not just like swinging high and low. But you're also not feeling a lot. I didn't like it. And you have to be so careful when you drink on it. This is the one thing people don't talk about.
It's on the bottle.
Yeah, I mean,
the pill bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It needs to be discussed more because so many people that take it are also drinking to try to soothe. And that's what we're taught. Like, that's the acceptable medication is drinking, and it's not helping. But when you're on those medicines, it is detrimental. And
what does it do? Does it make you have high and low swings, even though the medication is supposed to prevent that?
Yeah, I've been told. And I didn't sell SSRIs before, but I know friends that have and whatnot. But if I was told that when you drink, it's almost like wiping it out, like you didn't take the medication that day. And you are supposed to titrate on and off of those. Like cold turkey is not a good idea. When you start to titrate down and wean yourself off, that last step is the most crucial that people also don't talk about.
Yeah.
And they say, like, if a person falls down the stairs, it's usually on the last step because they're like, oh, I got this, I'm good, and the last one gets attention. You. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with getting off those meds. Like, you have to be so careful, so careful with that, so careful.
How was it for you coming off of them? How did you make the decision that you wanted to?
I I knew I was in a dark, dark place. So I was working 2 jobs. I worked in a cigar bar in New York as well, which was super fun. I had all this extra cash. I had no life. I was doing pharmaceuticals in the day, this cigar bar at night. I'd gotten into a bad real estate deal years back on this pre-construction condo, and so I was in a lot of debt. So I was like, I'm going to have to just get a second job. It's the way it is. So finally I quit the cigar bar after 3 years. I'm like, I was single, having a hard time dating. I'm like, I will be the lady in the shoe if I stay here in New York and whatnot. So I remember a girlfriend, we were going to go to Miami. Bags were packed. I had to just drop my dog off at the time, who's since passed, but I just had to drop her off for the weekend. And I couldn't. Like, I had everything ready to go, and I was on my couch, and I just had to, just drop the dog off, get to the airport, and you got this. And I just called her, and I was like, I just can't do it. I can't do it. And she's just like, you can't, and it's like, and I, everything in my body just wanted to, but I just was all the way drained. I also picked up a nice little Adderall addiction, which didn't help. And I had stopped the Adderall as well.
How long were you taking that for?
Probably 2 years, maybe.
How'd you get started on it?
A friend gave me.
No, it was definitely prescribed to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Friend gave me one. and my heart was racing. I was actually in Egypt. And
Why'd you take it?
well, I was traveling and I was super jet lagged. It was a really hot day. We were on this long tour, and I remember we were in this shop, like a tourist shop, whatever. And I was so dog tired, when jet lag just hits you.
Yeah.
I was so dog tired, and it was, there were 3 of us total. And so I said to the 2 of them, I was like, listen, guys, I can't even stand up right now. I'm so tired. I'm gonna go just sit in the tour bus and I wasn't gonna nap, but I'm like, I gotta shut.
You were gonna nap.
Yeah, I was gonna try. Yeah, I didn't know if I'm not a great napper, but I was like, I at least gotta. I can't stand up. I'm so fucking tired right now.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, why don't you just take one of my Adderalls? And I was like, oh, okay. And then it's like anything, it's your lips. It's so good. All of a sudden, my heart was like, it was like, bing, And then, the side effects is, so she gave me a handful, and whatnot. And I've always been.
Is she not aware that this is a prescription drug that has severe?
She was a pharma rep too. Yeah. Yep. Yep. And yeah. So,
So how did you get your Adderall post that handful then?
just go to a doctor, tell him you got it.
Okay, so you actually got a script.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Got my own script. Piece of cake.
What'd you tell him? Can't stay awake. I have narcolepsy.
Yeah, just restless, fidgety, can't concentrate. They're like, okay, dude, no problem. They just pass it out like candy.
Is that because they have a rep that sells Adderall, and the more that they prescribe?
I think they just, if a patient is on a prescription, that means they have to come back. And
God, I don't think that is a good design for our medical system.
no, I mean, whether you like it or not, surgeons need people to operate on. Doctors need patients coming in and out of the door. It's the dirty part of the business. But it's true. This is even more fucked up. So fast forward to my recent full mental breakdown when a lot of stuff was going on about 3 years ago. I had a situation, kind of a lot of things here. So one of my favorite speeches is by Steve Jobs. I don't know if you're familiar with connecting the dots backwards.
I am familiar with who Steve
Yeah.
Jobs is. I'm not familiar with that particular speech.
So I believe it was a Stanford commencement speech. You
Sure.
can find it on YouTube. Great thing. He talks about just don't stay in the box. Don't stay vanilla. Stay wild. Challenge everything. Just go for it. Get after it in life. Fuck the norms. It's great. And he says, as you push forward, you'll make these dots, but when you look back, you can just connect the dots to your life and be like, oh, this got me to that got me to this. And so all
Yeah, you
these
won't see
things.
it in real time moving forward, but with
Yeah.
the ability to look backward, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So it's a big thing. So as I tell these stories, I'm like, oh, this is a dot I should probably add. So I might kind of jump around all over the
great.
place. So yeah. So your original question was
Adderall.
Yeah, Adderall. Oh, what got me there?
Well, I have more questions about Adderall. Like, one, when did you realize you were addicted?
Oh, right away. Yeah. Right. I mean, it was like the first one. Yeah, it was the first one. Because it's every chick doesn't want to be like fat and tired. And those are the two things. It takes
Did
away
you
your
know
appetite.
that there are other ways to not be fat and tired than Adderall?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was always a runner. I played basketball, ran track. Like, I loved running, I loved working out, was super into spin and whatnot. But like, if you just want like that edge, it takes you to the next level.
So then when did you realize it was a problem and you needed to stop?
When I had 3 scripts in New York.
From different doctors?
Yeah. Yep. I had a regular script through insurance. Whoa. I had a cash pay. So they like wouldn't track the insurance. And then, I was just I was like, oh, I don't have insurance, just cash pay.
Yeah.
And then the other one was a fake name. So like, and after a couple of years, 2 years, year or whatever, those 3 bottles like wouldn't get me through a month. It's just like anything, you're going to build a tolerance.
I was going to say, how much were you taking? I mean, obviously,
a lot, yeah.
Like how much?
I mean, 3, you have your quantity of probably 60 in one prescription. So
180 pills.
Yeah, quite a bit. And so I remember just, trying to.
So you were taking like 6 of those a day.
Holy
fuck.
Couple in the morning, because you're going to go up, down, up, down, up, down. So it's like, here's 2 more, it's lunchtime, or here's 2 more, it's evening, especially working 2 jobs too.
How'd you get yourself off?
I, by the grace of God, I probably should have been in rehab at least like 3 times in my life. Addictive personality. I've dabbled with drugs. It's, something I've, struggled with. But for some reason, I just have that moment where it's like that come to Jesus moment. It's like, you got to get your fucking shit together. And this is the moment right now. So I've got like a crystal clean record, no DUIs, no felonies, no nothing. As a sales rep, you would lose your job if you got a DUI, felonies, like you're out. So it was always, that kind of kept me buttoned up. But it just was a moment where I'm like, what are you going to do? You're going to get a 4th prescription? Is that what we're going to do? Like, is this the plan? I've struggled with Adderall. I've struggled with marijuana, same thing. Old school ecstasy, same thing, just running hard after like 2 years. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, it's.
What is old school ecstasy? I have no experience with it whatsoever. So,
so there's different forms of it now, but it's like, this is like 20 years ago, in the rave days and the glow sticks and the, pre-fentanyl. God, I would be so scared to take any pill or drug.
I don't see how
days.
Anybody is not terrified.
Yeah.
It's almost, I've had conversations with people who have children. You could talk to your kids about drugs and alcohol and sex and driving and all these things. And your hope is like, please don't fucking do all 4 at the same time. I mean, should we be giving testing kits to our kids?
Probably.
Even though you're telling them, please, like trying to educate them on the risk and the danger. I wouldn't, mortified.
Yeah.
I mean, like, some guy or girl that I don't know is just going to give me this and I'll meet you in a Target parking lot. Yeah, I'm sure it's probably, he looked like an honest guy.
Yeah.
Someone
I heard on a podcast that sometimes people are lacing fentanyl in joints. So you're just smoking a joint. And I was like,
but why would you do that?
Oh my God. I don't know if it's to get them hooked or to make it stronger or so you buy that same brand again. I have those questions too, but.
Hard pass.
Yeah, it is terrifying to know what's out there these days.
Well, it's a voluntary ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
It is a choice.
Yeah. It's tough.
It is a tough choice. Just because it's voluntary doesn't mean that it's easy.
Yeah. Well.
But you can really increase your odds.
Yeah. 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 I think the testing strips is the way to go.
It's an interesting conversation at the very least. I mean, should they be available at public schools? Don't ask, don't tell policy. I mean, I don't know the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't either.
But I have very open and honest conversations with my kids. Yep. And I remember in high school seeing weed. I don't think I ever saw cocaine I never saw that I'm aware of pills or people taking pills. I think I was well into the military before I even heard the term like oxy.
Yeah.
Booze, I mean, that was kind of like what
Yeah.
kids had access to. Like you got your 40 of Old English. I look back at them like,
Zima.
I mean, both of those is like, hey, you want to go to the hardware store and drink paint thinner?
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably, if you looked at it, a 70% overlap in ingredients.
Yeah.
But, you know, I talk to my kids, acid, cocaine, crushed ketamine, weed.
Yeah.
I'm like,
There's some flaming
What?
pink thing out now. I just heard this too. I'm like, what? I don't remember the name of it, but yeah, there's a lot.
it's a rough world.
I don't know how you navigate that. Because as a kid, of course you're going to experiment, you know? And I know 2 stories where it was literally the first pill and the kid died,
Yeah.
you know?
I don't know the answer.
I don't either.
It's a more complicated time than when I grew up for sure, though. I do not know the answer.
Yep.
The best I'm hoping for is super open and honest conversations with my kids, and I just try to educate them about the risks of that stuff. We talk about stuff like how would you know?
Yeah.
It like what is it worth the potential risk
Yeah.
for the I don't know what the potential gain would be. I guess the satiation of curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
hard.
I don't have the answer.
Well, and as a society, we're like, well, if it comes from a doctor and it's a pill, it's okay. You know, that's
That is
medicine.
incorrect.
Yeah. That's like, that's
If that
where
was the
we are.
case, we wouldn't have a documentary series about the Sackler family.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hopeful that the Supreme Court pierces the veil of bankruptcy on that one. Did you hear their plan on how they're going to pay it off?
No.
So the estimate is they made somewhere between 20 to 30 billion,
Yeah.
and they agreed to pay 8 billion, but it was over an extended period of time. So they could actually pay it using the interest on the money that they already have. So they could become whole. They could make the payment whole without actually feeling any of the impact.
It's disgusting.
It is.
It's so disgusting.
It's gnarly.
It's, yeah. I get so bitter about it.
Well, you were saying before that you saw behind the curtain and how horrible it was. What did you see when the curtain came back?
Just, I mean, I've seen stories too of like what reps do. Like back in the day, I knew a rep gave a pharmacist a really nice camera. You know, he just had a baby. Of course, you're going to document it, whatever. And it was just a backdoor deal where the rep's like, listen, when this comes through, I need you to push everything to this product. And the pharmacist did. And the sales rep makes this number. You know, I've seen sales reps, sometimes you sell something that's over the counter, it's not a prescription.
Mm-hmm.
Sales reps, if they're real close to like hitting their number, it's the end of the year, you're trying to make President's Club or a big bonus, and you're like this shy, you know, and they'll rank you too. If like top 10 will get this trip, and if you're sitting at number 12, you're like, oh, I got to get this, you know. They'll just go out and buy it, you know.
They'll buy it themselves.
Yeah. Drop, you know, a couple grand, and
That's what I'm talking about.
yeah, they are cheating the system, you know.
That's what happens
Yeah.
when you create systems like that,
Yeah.
where you're publicly ranked and there are incentives on the line. You're fishing with dynamite.
Yeah. Or reps buddy up to the doctors. Like maybe a guy's always going fishing with a doctor and they're just like this. You know, they treat them like family. You know, I know one girl, the doctor's like, I'm going to need you to help me move this weekend. And she's like, okay. You know, he's like, you want that business? Get over there. Like, it's just, yeah. It just gets dirty. It gets worse and worse. And some people have like affairs, like it's you name it, it happens. It's just it's a very dirty business.
Do you ever know of any reps getting arrested for illegal activity?
Not firsthand. I know a guy that blew the whistle on a few things and made millions.
Oh, really? He
Yeah.
was incentivized for
off-label use. Yeah, somehow he coordinated. Like I don't know how because we're all the reps are like, how did he do that? You know,
Yeah.
like, but yeah, he partnered with the right people and blew the whistle and made millions.
So how'd you know it was enough? How did you know you're like, I just cannot operate in this pond anymore?
It was kind of a combination of things. So I was in a tailspin mentally. I knew I had some shit going on, and I was like, let me just reach out for some talk therapy. because I'm like, I think I'm going to go into a tough situation here.
What started your tailspin?
So 2016, I think it was. I was living in LA, third story corner unit apartment. I lived next to a huge field. One night I'm on a conference call. It's like 4:00. It's dark winter. Tank top, yoga pants, ponytail. Not doing naked cartwheels or anything around. And the scaffolding. So this construction comes up. There's scaffolding like just right. I mean, right on top of me. I could like almost from me to you. These guys work 7 days a week, whatever. They're just always there. And I would have to go up and down the stairs, like pass them, whatever. And I just, these guys were a part of my life. So I'm looking at I'm looking out the window and I see these shoes on scaffolding facing me. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. I was on this conference call. I was like, I don't know. And they're kind of like shuffling. I'm like, that's super weird. And so I look up again. And as I'm looking up, he's unzipping his zipper, taking his dick out. And I'm just like, and I just froze. I start shaking. I grab my phone, could not dial 911. And I'm just like, and I just had my phone and I'm shaking. I went like this and then just closed the blinds. And it did a number on me. It fucked me up. Now to backtrack, in high school, I had plenty of times where I was followed home a couple times, walking, driving. A guy just popped up as I was sitting outside my apartment one day. With high school girlfriends, guys would be jacking off in their cars. That happened a few times.
What?
Yeah, none of this bothered me.
Michael, I told you about that behavior.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
It's got to release. I mean, what can the guy do?
Privacy of your own home, please.
Yeah,
God,
yeah,
we've had this talk.
So none of that bothered me. In high school, whatever. We just
It didn't bother you that you walked by some dude just jacking off in his car?
No, because we would be we're in high school. I remember one time I was in Daytona Beach. It was me and my two girlfriends, and they were beautiful blondes or whatever. And this guy had his windows down. He was just just driving by, and we're like, oh, gross. Be
That's actually called a sexual predator, probably more than anything, because he was getting off on the fact that you guys were seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was a twisted person.
So that, whatever reason, we're just creepy loser. Didn't affect me. When this dude was outside my window, whole different story, because...
Was he looking at you through the window?
Oh, yeah, it was right at me. I was a target.
God, human beings are so fucking weird.
I was a target. And so it did a number on me because I was like, oh, fuck. And here I am, this badass bitch, making my money. I'm independent. I got my own shit, and it just, in that moment, my independence was stripped from me. It was all taken away. And then I started doing the plan B. Well, what's the next thing? I'm here. I'm a sitting duck in this apartment by myself. I don't have a gun. I don't know what to do. I'm I don't have any family around. I don't have a brother. I don't have a cousin, nothing. I had some girlfriends, but...
How many stories was the building?
3.
So you were on the top one?
Yep. Yeah, and so...
I've already thought through several situations that I think would work well.
So but for me, I started spiraling because I'm are you going to grab another construction buddy tomorrow and kidnap me the next time I'm walking my dog and take me somewhere and chop me up in a basement or ship me off to, some sex trade? What's next? Because I'm I do not fucking feel safe here.
I don't want to speak for you, but it sounds like you felt like you didn't have any control.
Absolutely. And as a control freak, that was a huge problem. Huge problem. One of my doctors was in the military in Iran. He was really into guns and whatnot. And I remember talking to him. I was like, I think I might need a gun. And he's like, okay. So we went shooting, and I a couple days later, I put the target practice on the window, and I was just like, fuck you. That's the only sliver of control I could get back in the situation. But I just buried it, and the problem with type A people, I always say this, if you're a first responder, if you're military, you're real good at getting shit done. You tend to have that high drive and you're good. The problem is that you're good at burying shit too. like real good. And so this is why I don't really like talk therapy for first responders or veterans. Obviously,
Depends on the person.
Yeah, I try not to speak in absolutes because it does help. I know you've mentioned it; it's helped you. So I'm not saying it doesn't work. I just think maybe 80% of the time it's not going to be enough. And so I tried talk therapy. I tried talking through it. The crazy thing is after that construction guy, it happened 2 more times with different neighbors.
Dick bandits?
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't even tell anybody about the other 2 because I'm like, they're going to think I'm like,
So
yeah.
if you think you're not telling those other 2 stories, I don't know where you think you are. Because let's get into it.
Yeah. Like,
First off, did you see the construction worker ever again?
well, I called my landlord and I was like, I didn't know what to do. And he's like, well, what did he look like? I'm like, it was dark, jeans, hazard jacket.
Yeah.
He looked like maybe he was, brown skin. I'm like, it looked taller than, I'm like, I have no fucking idea. It was so, and so they, called the police and they're like, oh, who was out there with their dick? Like no one's going to be, oh, it was me. Like that's not happening. So like, it was a huge waste of time. And they're like, well, we're going to take notes on that. I'm like, dude, I'm still fucked in this house. Like I'm fucked in this apartment. Like this is not good.
Did you consider calling 911?
I tried that day, but I just couldn't even dial the number.
I mean, like later in the day.
Oh,
Cops could have gone and figured out what construction crew was like working there. They could have talked to them. There's some ways you could have probably worked through it.
Probably could have. Like I just was so shooken up that yeah. So the second time it happened, I was working out and it was just like way across the field, and I see this guy like leaning against his window, and he had those mirrored closet doors, that are like all like, sliding glass closet doors. They're all mirrors. Mm-hmm. So he had those and he's like sitting and I can see like his butt, like he had his pants pulled down, like leaning against the window. And I like had just got done working out and I like look over and I'm like, why is that guy sitting there with this like ass on the window ledge? I'm like, that's super weird. And then he was just sitting there and then like the things started clicking. I was like, oh my God, he's got his pants down. He's got his dick in his hand. And there's the mirror looking at me. Like, I didn't even think you could see me. I was like, whoa. And then the third time was a different dude on his balcony, lived with his girlfriend. Like, I kind of, whatever. I had just gone out to let my dog out. I closed the doors. I was going to bed. I turned off all the lights and I went back in and I forgot something. I think I was going to get some water or something. So I went up to the front and I remember him out there like brushing his teeth on his balcony. I'm like, that's a random place to brush your teeth, but whatever. And so as all the lights are off, I'm like walking in and there he is just fucking stroking it. I'm like... I'm like looking for the camera.
So his name is Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
He's more of a night-timer. I mean, that one seems like you just caught somebody in the middle of some personal reflection time. I don't know if that was targeted towards you, but you have horrendous luck.
Yeah.
Or timing, or the combination of both.
Yeah. But I'm a big believer. Like, I've always been super, super spiritual, really spiritual. And
how does that tie into what we were just talking about?
Well, just that I'm like, I think things happen for a reason.
So you got Jack the Ripper, Jason Cockburn in the mirror using fieldcraft to like go backwards, and the Dick Bandit on the scaffolding.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jesus would approve.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think so. But I look back, I'm like, it helped me on my journey, and I'll kind of get into psychedelics in a minute here, and horse therapy. Those are 2 things I really want to talk about. But
not at the same time, right?
No.
Okay, just checking.
No, not a good idea.
Yeah.
But in that moment, like I checked in with a therapist. It wasn't really going. Nothing was happening. Nothing was really releasing. Mm-hmm. If you're going through like a breakup or something, you lost your job, I think maybe talk therapy can kind of help, but it wasn't doing it for me.
Depends on the person.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Trauma is not the scale of justice that I think people would want it to be. And what I mean by that is it doesn't seem to be equally applied. You could have 6 people who experience the same thing.
Yeah.
and they will have 6 versions of their truth and their experience. And it's like, how can you argue against that? And also the weight or outcome of that from what that trauma may do to them is very different.
Yeah, how you process it.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't come from that world. I don't know how well that is understood, but I don't know. At my own, and again, I was never really, I don't feel traumatized by my military time. I feel like I'm a better version of myself. We were asked to do some really abnormal shit.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we used to do is sit down and talk about it a lot. After every military operation, you're probably going to have an AAR, an after action review, and you go through, all 5 phases and you talk about it sequentially. What do we plan to have happen? What actually happened? What do we do right? Which for clarity is we spend the least amount of time on that, and then what we could do better. And it's not meant to be a therapy session by any stretch, but if you think about it, it's a group of people who have a shared experience, but different outcomes from that. And you're kind of reliving it a little bit, and you're at least talking about it, and you're bringing things, not everything, obviously. And I'm not saying it is therapy, but I think it can be therapeutic.
Yeah.
And I just think it really depends. And I think it's so variable on how you grew up,
Yep.
how much past trauma you're bringing into your current and future trauma. It's just, I wish it was this scales of justice and it was equal. Not that the scales of justice are equal, but as a metaphor, because then at least I think we'd have a better template on how we could assist people.
Well, I had so much guilt about it too, so I buried it, for a couple of years. Like,
Guilt about what?
Just that I couldn't get past it. I'm like,
Are we talking about the dick bandits?
yeah, I'm like, you had some dick bandits outside your window. It's not a big deal.
You had a dick bandit. Jack Cockborn was in the mirror, and Jack the Ripper was on the top. And
But I'm like, nobody sexually assaulted you. Nobody hit you. Nobody abused you. You weren't raped. You weren't molested. Like, fucking get over it. There's
That
so
doesn't
many
mean
people with worse stories.
yeah, who
But
gives
that-
a fuck?
In my head, that's what I was like,
What's the metaphor though? Comparison is the thief of joy.
yeah.
So who
Yeah.
cares what other people experience? It's okay to be more impacted by something that somebody else, it might hit them like Teflon and then
Totally.
slide off. I think that's a mistake that people make.
Absolutely.
Why am I feeling this way? I shouldn't be feeling this way. Look at fill in the blank and they're fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta be
I'm
cautious
get
with
over it.
that.
Absolutely. It's a horrible pattern. But I think, a big reason I wanted to come on this show is to fight for first responders and military too. There's obviously a lot of crossover there, but it takes so much courage just to raise your hand and just be like, I might need some help here.
Yep.
It is so hard to do because you probably have guilt or you don't know what to do, or maybe you tried talk therapy once or twice, which obviously isn't enough, but you got to share your story. And that's what I want to do here today is just, you never know who's listening. I've been to enough of these events like wellness, and some people hear a story and they're like, I didn't think about that, or I didn't think about, that makes me feel better, or I felt that way too. So the more people can talk about when they raised their hand, why they raised their hand, the fumbles, the wins, what helped, what didn't, there's so much strength in sharing a story. So
Since those 3 instances, have there been any more random dick encounters?
I don't think so. Not that I know. Not that I know.
We can put that to bed.
Yeah. Thank God.
Let's put that to bed.
Yeah, but I thought too, like in those moments, I would think like, if you could just turn, I've always been a pretty private person, and it's not that I have much to hide, but I'm just like, I just don't feel like putting everything out in the world. But I'm like, if you could just reframe yourself like Kim Kardashian, this problem would go away. If you could just,
I'm not understanding that metaphor.
if you could just welcome, like, oh, look at me. I'm, just like, she just is so thirsty. Like, just bring that attention. Like,
I think it's all fake though.
It is. And,
Do you think she's a happy person at the end of the day?
Absolutely not. But
That would be my suspicion.
her brand is, look at me. I want you to masturbate to me. Like, yes. Like that is kind of her.
For clarity again,
you know.
that was not me speaking for Kim Kardashian.
I'm
And
sure
it wasn't Michael either.
I've heard she's a very nice person. So, I don't mean to like totally knock her, but,
the worst part about the Kardashian, what would be the best way to call this? The Kardashian effect is that lifestyle has become a role model for young women.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I don't think it ends anywhere good.
Nope. No, but that's kind of what we're taught. And so like, I remember telling myself like, a couple guys had their dicks out. It's not that big of a deal. If you could just get yourself in the Kim K mindset and just welcome the attention and strive for it, you know, like she wants followers. She wants that lust. Like that's her brand. And for me, I'm like, just fucking switch your mindset. Like, just get over it. Just fucking get over it.
If only it were that easy.
Yeah, and it's not. So
I hijacked you before. You were in a tailspin.
Yeah.
I understand now 3 contributing factors to said tailspin.
Yeah.
Tell me more. So you're in a tailspin.
Yeah, fast forward to, so I was living out in Cave Creek, Arizona, beautiful area.
How'd you find your way out there?
Kind of random. I was leaving Los Angeles. I'd gone through a breakup. I was staying in Airbnb. Wasn't into my job. Like I was ready to rebrand. And I was like, let me just see like what a house rental would look like in Arizona. Went on Zillow. I knew the instant that this was my house when I saw it. I was like, this is my house. This is my house. Talked to the landlord. I was like, hey, I'm trying to get to Arizona. I don't have a job yet. I got a couple things brewing, but I saw this house, really like it. Maybe in 2-3 weeks I'll have something, whatever. So he's like, okay, we'll just keep in touch. Calls me a couple days later. He's like, hey, I just want to let you know I've got a few people that want to see the house this weekend. I was like, I'll take it. Like sight unseen, signed it, didn't have a job. Like I just knew it was my house. I loved it. I love that house so much. I moved there with nothing except a semi-truck full of plants and a couple minor things. Slept on the floor for a while, rebuilt it, like just bought all my furniture for this house. Like I loved it. People called me Snow White because I'd have all these animals like mule deer and javelina and like roadrunners
Were
and
you feeding them?
bobcats and a little bit. Yeah, I had bird feeders, and then the deer would come by and like empty the bird feeder.
You're not
whatever.
Snow
Like,
White.
yeah.
You're called a food source.
Totally.
We're going to take a step back here
Yeah.
because you tried to slide something by me there. You said a semi-truck full of plants?
Oh, yes, I did. I did, yes.
You're
Yeah.
just going to try to bring that up in that way and just hope that I didn't catch that?
Yeah. So I turned into the weird plant lady.
Because a semi-truck doesn't mean you started one day and then a week later had a semi-truck.
Yeah.
When did you start collecting plants?
I was living with a boyfriend. I was not into his house. He lived in these townhouses that were like right on top of each other in a huge fishbowl. And I didn't want to be that chick that's like, we need to move, or like, I want to redecorate, like, let's repaint, let's da-da-da-da-da. Like, I just was like, don't be that chick. So I loved being outside. And so eventually I was like, I'm just going to start gardening. And so I'm out as a sales rep, doing my calls and whatever. And I would just like swing by a garden shop and maybe buy, a plant. I would come home with 1 or 2 plants every day. Fast forward like a year later, I have all these plants and I loved it. I still love plants to this day. So I built my garden just kind of trying to make a space at a house that I wasn't really that into.
Okay. Yeah, that's not crazy at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have kids. Like I don't, it's like, this was kind of like my hobby, and and I loved it. It was outdoors and, I would watch them grow, and it was very soothing to me. So, I've got this huge garden, moved to Arizona, drive this semi truck full of plants, just me. It's pretty crazy, to this house in Cave Creek. And it was so beautiful. I loved it. Fast forward 2 years, out of nowhere, unbeknownst to me, what happens? So I have a full acre in this house. It's a desert setting, very open, beautiful. Landlord decides to put 2 houses, boom, right up against the windows. Fast forward to my flashbacks. I'm like, I got fucking construction workers right up in my business. And I was like, just take a deep breath. I was like, okay, you're going to get through this. Like, this is your dream house. I was just renting, but I was like, this is your dream house. And I love that house so much. I'm like, you can get through this. Like, you're going to trigger on, construction workers outside your door all the time. And I just knew, I was like, this isn't going to get good. So I was like, let me just reach out and get some like talk therapy brewing in case shit kind of pops off. So I reach out on my insurance card, insurance-based therapists. Only 2 called me back. It was so hard to even get someone to call me back. The first one was doing a study. It just didn't sound good at all. Second one, I was like, okay, whatever. And they're like, okay, so the thing with this program is in order for talk therapy, we need you to be on a prescription. And I was
It was
like,
a
requirement, mandatory.
Oh,
And I
that's
was like,
fucked.
I was like, that does not sound normal. You know, like that was the first red flag. I'm like, not good at all. But I was like, okay. All right, fine. So, they're like, okay, what script do you want? And so I had this talk therapist who was not really much of a therapist and not great. You get good therapists, you get bad therapists.
Yeah.
She was on the bad side. But once every 3 months, I had a 20-minute call with the doctor that would write the script. Knew nothing about me, was just...
It's a telehealth call.
Yeah, you're billing to, insurance scam, whatever. So I was like, okay. She's like, well, what script would you like? And I was like,
That's a really weird question to ask the patient.
absolutely. You shouldn't be, it's, all kind of wrong. So I'm like, well, I've got Adderall or Lexapro. I'm like, you want the upper or you want the downer? I'm like, I'm not really a fan of Lexapro. I'm not sure how I felt about it. The whole reason I got off Lexapro is because I moved and I made so many life changes that I was like, I think I'm okay and that things worked out. But I was like, I guess we'll go with Adderall. And now when I left New York, I made a promise to myself that I would never take one of those fucking pills again. And here I am.
I mean, you could get the script and just flush it down the toilet.
Could have. Yeah. But it's, the devil got me, so.
How was that first one back?
Good. Tastes good. Tastes good when it hits your lips,
Just
and
walking around watering fucking 300 plants for a couple hours?
yeah, just like, look all this energy I got. And so, I have these construction workers outside. I'm kind of triggering. I've always leaned more into marijuana than drinking. I mean, I still drink here and there, but so, the problem with marijuana is that it smells a lot, and so in a perfect world, I would just love like an old school joint, smoke it, great. But the whole neighborhood knows you're smoking, whatever.
You could try like gummies or edibles.
Yeah, not as much. I'm not really into edibles. It would be a much better fit,
It's a different ride for sure.
Yeah. So not my jam. So I started vaping. Now vaping is huge concentrations. I mean, you're getting to like the 27%. Like it is to any vapors. Oh, it is so concentrated.
Oh, it'll put you on Pluto.
Yeah, and you're building that tolerance. And so I was hitting the Adderall, hitting the vape pens, and threw myself right into psychosis. Started hearing voices. And I was like, holy shit.
What were they telling you?
At first, it kind of felt like Twitter, but like live audio. There was always like one or two.
Like people were just reading their tweets?
Almost like you're at a restaurant and someone's kind of like, oh, what are they ordering? Or, oh, what are you wearing? Or, oh, you're leaving the house kind of late today. Like, shouldn't you be leaving earlier? Or like,
Could you hear it clearly?
Yeah. It was usually like 2 people, male, female, 2 female. Like it was always 2. It wasn't one person. It was always like a side conversation, literally where you'd be like, it's like, are there neighbors? Or is like somebody, like, I don't get it. So,
no shit.
So apparently Adderall and vaping, per the doctor, could give you hallucinations. Some people see them, hear them, whatever. And I was very open that I was doing Adderall and vaping for over a year. None of this, came up. And so the more the voices came in, she's like, I was like, am I schizophrenic? Like, I don't know. And she's like, I think we should switch you, like, let's get you off the Adderall. Puts me on 3 schizophrenic medications. And mind you, I'm in a full fucking tailspin with these construction dudes. I got all this stuff going on at work, the DOJ, I'm depositions, I'm waiting a year, also in COVID. Am I going to lose my job? Or is the world going to blow up? Are we all going to die? Like, it just was the perfect storm that came together. And so...
If you don't mind my asking,
Yeah.
like, what was the lowest point of that?
Of, like, the voices? And
No,
whatnot?
just like where you were at the lowest of the low. Like, what did that look like?
Just not knowing if I'm schizophrenic, I mean, that's the thing. Like, doctors toss out these labels like, oh, you're bipolar, or you're schizophrenic, or you're, multiple personality. Like, that's the thing with our healthcare system is these people throw out labels, and it's like, you might not be the best person to diagnose this situation. And I think it was really like, should I be in a straitjacket, because I kind of feel like maybe I should.
So you were starting to question reality.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was like, I might be fucking schizophrenic.
Did you ever talk back to the voices?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I started screaming because then they got worse and worse. So at first it was okay, like kind of just chatter, like the peanut gallery, just kind of always like on your shoulder, And then, so I ended up leaving that house, moved from Cave Creek down to Central Phoenix in a different house. And that house had super bad energy. There was this super creeper dude that, oddly enough, used to go around to the neighbors with his dick in his hand. And I'm like, what? Like, he had these like Somalian prostitutes that came to the door. They thought the house was there. This girl would like knock on the door. She's like, this is my house. She's like, where's Larry? I'm like, he's not here, girl, and this is not your fucking house. Like, it just, I like the stuff I can't, that's why I'm like, I probably should write a book, but what, I don't know. So when I moved to that house, the voices got gnarly. Like,
did they ever say cool or interesting shit?
No, like judging.
Oh, fuck.
Judging. Like your worst inner voice, your worst inner critic. Just like you think of like the nagging mother-in-law, like just on your shoulder all the time, all the fucking time. So I had done, so I quit those therapists, and I was also doing a year of EMDR. So for people that don't know, it's kind of using like a tool, pen, or an object, and you're talking through a past situation.
I've heard it's highly effective.
I have too, yeah. For me, yeah, I think it was good. I wouldn't say it's great,
Better than just talking, though?
Better than talking. It was like 22 appointments over a year, dropped 10,000 on it. Great lady. I think it helped a little bit, but I mean, that's a lot of time, a lot of money. And we talked about the voices. She's like, you are not schizophrenic. She's like, you're too old. You're not meeting the demographics. Like, she's like, absolutely not. 100% you are not. I got 2 other opinions. I got a brain scan. I was in a car accident in college, and I had bunch of staples in my head. I had completely forgotten about it, but I was hearing on podcasts a lot about TBI and whatnot. So I'm like, maybe this is triggering voices, or maybe this is, I don't know, something. So I got a brain scan, $5,000, and they're like, not schizophrenic, absolutely 100% not. I was like, okay. And then
I didn't know that would show up on a brain scan, actually.
They told me so. So may or may not be true. I mean, it's so hard. It's so hard to navigate medical situations, You can Google and get 10 different answers. You can ask people and get 10 different answers. So I
also think you have to be careful how much time you spend on there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a way to restrict WebMD from my wife's phone.
That would be a good idea.
I just had a surgery about a month ago, an emergency surgery, and she admitted to me a few weeks ago that while I was under for about 2.5 hours, she was down a fucking deep, dark rabbit hole of everything because I had an intestinal blockage.
Yeah.
She's like, it was cancerous lumps.
Yeah.
It could, and all of these things.
Yeah.
And the doctor comes out, he's like, he's okay.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, she's just been oh my fucking
this is
God.
It. Yeah. Yeah. Like you're
great resource, but also
too much.
Take it easy.
Yeah.
Too
much. Yeah. Yeah. You got to be careful with healthcare. You got to be careful with it. So it's tough. So yeah. So the EMDR lady had said to me, she's like, you might have, she's like, you might have pierced the veil of another dimension or a world. And I'm like,
fuck yes.
I'm like, is this going to take another year and 22 visits, 10,000? Because I'm fucking tapped out. Like, I'm fucking tapped out of, I've been to all these fucking doctors. Like, I've done all this shit, I'm like, and I did so much ecstasy back in the day. I'm like, maybe I fried something. If that's the case, I'll own it. And I just need to fucking know. Like, these voices are not going away. It had been like 2 years of voices.
Were they constant, or would they just come and
Kind
go?
of come and go, yeah. If people were around, they weren't there. And people are like, it's just your inner dialogue. Or, they're like, people are like, maybe you have like a psychic or gifted ability. I'm like, oh, God, I'm fucking Harry Potter now. Like, woke up with this power. I'm like, it's just a lot to navigate. Alex Bernstein wrote a book called, I think it's called Tell Your Children, about going into psychosis with marijuana specifically, which is something people don't talk about. Rogan's talked about it a few times. And
Rogan's stance on weed has really changed over the years since I have known him and listened to him talk.
yeah,
He used to be, and I'm speaking broadly and not trying to speak for him, he was very like, everybody should be smoking weed. There's no downsides to it. And now he takes a much more measured approach to it.
yeah. That conversation, I think, was a big turning point for him, which, like everything, there are no absolutes.
Yeah.
Some people should not be doing it.
I think he recognizes the burden that is associated with the size of his platform as well. He's got to be real cautious with what he advocates for.
Yep. Yeah. And
Like advocating for people to eat right and work out, fire away anytime you want to. What's the dangers of weed?
yeah.
Red lights flashing.
Yeah. And he pushes psychedelics, too.
He
Not
does.
push, but he's
open about his own experiences, and
Yeah.
I think it has had a very positive benefit in his life. And I think what he is trying to do is express those benefits and the positivity it has had without advocating for everybody using them. Because I have heard him throw some warnings out there like, hey, I mean, psychedelics, as with everything, don't have a 100% success rate. It can snap you into pieces as well.
It can. And if you're not going to do the work, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to Mexico next week. I'll be doing my second ayahuasca. I did Lakota Sweat Lodge. I'll be doing another one next week. Did some peyote in a teepee. 2 trips of Ibogaine down at the Mission Within down in Mexico. A lot of the SEALs go.
How much of that stuff are you going to do?
Honestly, I think everything in my life has happened for a reason. And a lot of it is just, maybe I'm the guinea pig of mental health, like what to do, what not to do, a lot of trial and error.
I ask for a specific reason. I know people who have gotten lost in the drugs.
Yep, you can.
And their journey becomes, they now start defining themselves. They're so enlightened.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, the backyard shamans who are going, and doing ayahuasca by a Airbnb pool down in Temecula. I'm not saying that there couldn't be value derived from that, but when I hear people who are on their 8th, 9th, 15th cycle through it, it's like, what is this actually that you're seeking?
It can be cult. It can be a cult vibe for sure.
Well, it becomes their personality too. They're the enlightened, they know more than you. They've seen more things than you. And it's like, okay, maybe you have, but I feel like you started this journey because you were trying to maybe find something or heal something in and of yourself. And now it's just all about the plant medicines, as they call them.
Yeah. You have to be careful. It can be an identity. So for me, I think of psychedelics as it's not a magic wand. No one's getting fixed. No one's getting healed, solved. It will give you a couple pieces of information. And from that, you have to go home and do the fucking work. And that's what a lot of people don't do. And that is what really bothers me. And this kind of ties into the victim that you see. I see it in first responders, see it in military, see it in just regular civilians. It's like you're stuck on victim because you like the attention. And what's probably going on is you're lonely, or you're looking for a tribe, or it's...
I mean, if we want to be brutally honest, there is a slight reward mechanism for people in that space.
Yep. So you have to be careful. For me, it's helped me do the work internally. And I think the big thing is that I have a lot of anger towards the government for, a number of reasons, but a lot of anger towards the loss of privacy. And as, cameras are everywhere, everything is exposed. It's helped me do the work on releasing my anger. And you have to dig into it. And it's like, okay, I'm like, I don't want to be looked at. I don't want to be creeped on. I don't want dicks outside my window, but like, let's dig into it a little bit more. Why don't you like that? And I'm like, well, I don't like being observed because I don't always feel good enough. And I gave myself this term of like the B plus syndrome, where it's like, I know I'm good. I'm kicking ass on a lot of things. But if you could just be like a little bit better, like that A girl gets a ring, that A girl gets a husband, that A girl gets the promotion, or, like I just felt like I was always stuck at B plus. And talk therapy never got me to any of these deep perspectives.
So how did you get yourself out of that low point? You were talking about the EMDR,
Yeah.
because also at some point in this, you made a transition to the sweatshirt you're wearing.
Yep.
Wildland Fire.
Yeah.
Not exactly the same thing you were doing before.
No.
In the
not at all.
in that world.
Not at all.
So talk to me
Yeah.
about how you
Yeah.
came out of the bottom of the sine wave and found yourself in the Wildland Fire world.
I was in my EMT class, and I was 44, I think at the time. I'm 46 now. That class is like mostly 19-year-olds. They're pre-med, or they want to be EMT, or they want to go into fire, different things. So for me, especially in the pharma world, we're studying, the book and all these things. PTSD comes up, and it's just like a paragraph, and it says you're much more likely to die from suicide than on the job. And like my jaw hit the floor. I'm like, who fucking put that in print? Like, how did that even make it into print? And I had a great instructor. He was super just passionate, stand-up dude. I was like, hey, he talks about being like a grief counselor because you're with all these dead bodies and I'm like, where's the like grief counseling section, or like how are we handling like PTSD? Like where's that? He's like, well, you just learn on the job. I'm like, you learn on the job from people that want to kill themselves? And he's like, yeah. And I was just like, not fucking cool. Like, I'm 44 and I could barely navigate this, let alone a 19-year-old. And I hear the stories of like sleeping in the rig, and you're taking a obese person down the stairs. God forbid you drop them because they're gonna throw a malpractice on you and you might lose your house, and like all these things. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and it got me really mad. Like the mama bear came out. I'm like, you can't throw fucking 19-year-olds into this situation. Like, this is not okay, and I think of myself like dropping $3,000 for doctors at Nobu, and like these 19-year-olds are gonna lose their house because they worked a 48-hour shift with no sleep and accidentally like a handle slipped and you dropped an obese person. I'm like, well, this is so fucking wrong.
Can they actually sue the individual like that, or would it be the department or organization they work with that would absorb the liability?
In that class, they said individual. Now, I can't speak to this as well. So I
feel like you'd have a real hard time. Like police have qualified immunity.
Yeah.
I feel like you'd have a real hard time getting anybody to do that job if your personal assets were tied to a mistake.
I think if you were working for the government, first responder, law, fire, I think you're covered by your organization.
A lot of ambulance companies that are a contract. They're subcontracted and not actually a government employer.
Yep. So that's where that might pertain just to the like EMT contract people. I don't know, to be honest, I don't know enough to answer that. But,
I don't either, yeah.
But it was a threat, and one of the instructors is like, when you got to take like meticulous notes. And he's like, I'll be in the back, like you're looking at the old lady that had a stroke, and I'm just typing away every single detail. Like, she's going to come for me. I know she's going to do malpractice. And like, I just remember looking at him being like, that is not a good mindset to be in. Like, just assuming everyone's going to try to take your house. I'm like...
It's a very defensive and anxiety-ridden mindset, for sure.
Yeah, it's like, that just doesn't seem right. So it put a fire in me just to, like, stand up for first responders more. And then during COVID, I fell in love with horses. I started paddleboarding on Salt River in Arizona. They have tubing shuttles there as well. And so these tubers would come in and would get real sloppy, whatever. Well, the shuttles were shut down during COVID. So paddleboarders had the place to ourselves. And all these wild horses would come out. And we'd see like 100 wild horses. Like, it was spectacular. As the season ended, they drain the water levels. And so the season ends around October or so. And then it gets cold and whatever. And so the season's ending. And I was like, man, I just see more like horses in my life. And the girlfriend next to me. She's like, there's a horse rescue not that far from you. I'm like, what? Like I was there next week. Started volunteering, spent 2 years, Friday and Saturday evenings volunteering there. They have 80 horses. They were super dialed into kids, special needs, autistic, foster, you name it, like really good with kids. They did not have much of a footprint with first responders or veterans. So they're trying to kind of get more momentum there. I was on the committee, started to network, connected with a lady so this was like North Scottsdale area, connected with a lady up in Prescott, which is about an hour and a half north.
Very familiar.
And she was working with the VA, and she had some stuff going on. She had her own organization. And so I was just networking with her, and she's like, she's like, we have 2, weekend events coming up. She's like, why don't you come and you can see what we do? I was like, oh my God, I'd love to. Like, yeah, how did you? And for me, I thought like the VA is the perfect place to start. Like, that's where the veterans are. That's who you want to work with. Like, how did you get in there? Like, tell me everything. So I worked the 2 events with her, and then jumped on a phone call like maybe a month later, and there's a handful of people, and she's like, and she's in her retirement years, and she's like, guys, I'm just at a point where I'm ready just to kind of coast off into the sunset. So I think I'm gonna shut down this 501c3 unless anybody wants to step up. But I think it's time to dissolve it. And we're all just like, oh, that sucks, like it was just crickets. We're like, okay, we all got off the phone, hung up. And I just thought about it that night, and I'm like, I hate my job. I know I got to make some changes. I'm like, I called her back the next day. I'm like, I'll try it. I'm like, I'm going to give it a shot. So I became the president. Oddly enough, the name was Heroes and Horses, based out of Arizona. And it was me and one other dude, shout out to Peter, who he did marketing and kind of helped with the websites. He was a retired law enforcement officer, was also working at a university. And it was just him and I. Everyone else bailed. And for those that don't know, a 501c3, it's like running a business. You got to hire.
Oh, it is a business.
Yeah, I mean, you got to hire a grant writer, an accountant, social media person. Like, it is so hard to build those teams and to get the right fit. And then you got to get your donors. And it's not a game I'm that interested in playing, but I was the president for 6 months and then eventually shut it down. But it opened a lot of doors for me, and it was a great experience. So I quit my job. Fast forward to March. My lease was coming up, and I was like, I'm not signing this lease again. I was just trying to figure out ways to get out of my job and whatnot. It was like put in the square and the round peg. I'm like, it's just not fitting. I'm like, how am I going to get out of pharma? Like, I just can't do this anymore. And the voices were so bad, and I was like yelling back and whatever. And I just thought, I'm like, and I honestly think a lot of people probably would have killed themselves in that situation. It was that fucking bad. It was torture every fucking day. Every insecurity, it just was like death by 1,000 paper cuts, one after another. So I just thought, I was like, the only way you're going to overcome this criticism that you seem to be hearing is to be your best authentic self. And so I'm like, I'm just going to try to be the best person that I can. And I'm passionate about first responders. I'm passionate about better mental health, better PTSD options. I'm like, I'm going to lean all the fucking way into this. So my lease came up, and I had nothing except this charity. And like, I remember like just kind of screaming back at the voices, and I was like, just fucking take it. Like, just fucking take all of it. Take this fucking house, take these fucking plants, take that fucking, just fucking take all of it. I'm like, I will live in a fucking tent. I don't fucking care. Like, fuck you.
Did you have a tent?
I got one. Yeah. But I
just checking.
Yeah,
let's not make promises we can't deliver on here.
I know. I was like, I need a tent. Yeah, better planning. So surrender everything. Quit my job. I
stepped into the abyss.
Totally. And it's like, oh, burn the ships. I'm like, no, I sank the fucking island, where it's like, boom, like, start swimming, bitch. Just start swimming. I was like, and I was drowning. But I So as the new president of Heroes and Horses, I was like, all right, well, let me go to my website now. I'm like, Heroes and Horses. And I'm like, well, this is amazing. Like, look at this website. You know, I was like, oh my God. And it was Montana. And I was like,
So in an attempt to go to your website, you surfed over to Micah Fink's website.
I sure did. Shout out to Micah. Oh, he's doing good things. And
legendary mustache on that man.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Well, we're talking like Wyatt Earp would be jealous of that man's mustache.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So I talked to the COO, Mark Davis, awesome dude. We talked in February, and I was like, hey, oddly enough, I'm the president of Arizona, like, we have the same name. What are you guys doing? Like, I'm in way over my head as this president. Like, I need to know everything and anything. And he's like, you know what? We have like volunteers in the kitchen in the summer. That's our season. Like, maybe you should, come by. I was like, okay. So ended up, I got scheduled for a week. I surrendered like everything, gave all my plants away.
Thank God.
I love them. People are like, what are you going to do with their plants? I was like, and I also went into the Wildland Academy. It's Arizona Wildfire Academy. It's in Prescott. It's 1 week. Mm-hmm. So I went into the academy. It's super hard to navigate a red card and to get into fire teams. It's very hard to navigate.
What is a red card?
It basically, you get sponsored by an agency. It could be BLM.
So that is your chance to go into the academy? The red card?
You can go into the academy without a red card, but to get hired by a forest or organization.
You have to have a red card?
You do, yeah.
Gotcha.
It's like this sponsorship. So very, very hard to navigate. So I had gone into the academy, and I was also talking to Montana. And it was interesting because the instructor at the time, I showed him the video of Heroes and Horses. It was very impactful. And he was retired hotshot, and he had, the Granite 19 passed in Arizona, and he was tied to that and whatnot. So it was one of those moments that was interesting because I was like, should I, like, I've only got 1 week in Montana, or I can try to get this red card. Like, which one do I do? And he's like, you got to go to Montana. And I was like, whoa, like, I did not expect him to say that at all. He's like, there's always going to be fires. I was like,
it is true.
Yeah, I was like, wow. I was like, okay. So I was like, I'm going to go all the way into Montana. Like, I only have this 1 week, whatever. Rented a U-Haul because I had no car, threw a bunch of stuff in storage that was valuable.
So you drove an empty U-Haul?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had a bunch of shit in there. I had a tent, and some whatever. Yeah.
You could put the tent up, fully expanded, in the back of the U-Haul.
Yeah.
I like this.
It worked out well, yeah. So
Michael, road trip.
Who's ready? Yeah. So I had I rented a U-Haul for a month. It's like $400, and then you got to do your mileage and stuff. But I ran the numbers of like how I was going to get to Montana, whatever. It's like, oh, a month sounds good. I'm gonna be there for a week. I'll stay an extra week or two, and then drive back and whatever. So as I'm there that week, and I had waitressed a ton. I worked in banquets, catering, hotel, resort management. Like I knew how to work food in like large scale, but by no means I'm not a chef. Had a little bit on homeschooling and Food Network, but not a chef. So I'm there for the week. They fire the chef for destroying a couple cars. A couple other things happen, and it's like, okay, what are we gonna do? And so I told him, I was like, listen, I got my summer open. I need to fucking learn because I'm the president. We both have Heroes and Horses. I'm like, I'm in over my head, so like any information I can get will help. So I just wanted to be a sponge and just learn from the pros. Mm-hmm. So I was the head chef for the summer, and it's the hardest thing I've ever done.
How about like all the voices and stuff that were going on? Did they follow you to Montana?
They did, yeah. Not as bad. They really started to decline. I think the more I grew into myself and started feeling better about myself, the more they reduced. They still linger a little bit. And I'm like, I don't know if this is like permanent.
To this day.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if it's permanent damage or if it's something else, I'm like kind of still working on that. But yeah, I don't know. So I'm in Montana, and that was such a good experience. And when you're in the kitchen, you hear the side comments. And I think the most heartbreaking thing was all the talk of suicide. The guys that had attempted, friends had, obviously it's 22 a day, probably closer to 40 when you mix in some fentanyl. Like, you're never going to get those true numbers of what they really are.
Well, how they got to the 22 is very flawed as well. I think they only canvassed, I The highest number I've heard was 30 states out of the 50. And it was an incomplete data set to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you'll ever get a true number.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so skeptical. I don't even really trust Google anymore. I'm like ready to put my tinfoil hat on.
If you go on the internet, what I don't know if people realize, you'll find what you're searching for.
Yeah. Your confirmation bias. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there's just, my personal belief is that the internet should come with an IQ test.
Yeah.
Idiots get dial-up. Smarter people get broadband. You still have access to information, but anybody with an internet portal can create a website of their belief system, and people get fooled. People get tricked. And if you're just, like, if you go there with a confirmation bias, and it is the first thing that you see, whether it's true or not, you're going to believe it.
Yeah.
So it's just something, it's a tool that is only as useful as the person wielding it, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
Great resource. Like, I mean, I look at my own children, 20, 18, and 15. I watch them teach themselves things on YouTube. Yeah. Which is an amazing tool.
Yep.
I, at their age, would not have been teaching myself things like, what does titties.com net when I put that in? I mean, I'm just being honest. I'm glad I didn't have the internet at that age.
Yeah.
I would have a file folder that probably says like homework, and it wouldn't be homework in there.
No.
But it's amazing, and I wouldn't want to rob them of that tool. I literally have, my son did his first day of college yesterday. For the week leading up to it, he was doing math, college math, workshops, and practice homework on YouTube. Like, fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Don't take that tool away, but just be careful.
Yeah.
It's like a scalpel.
Yeah.
You can cut yourself the right things, or you could cut somebody by accident as well.
Yep.
You got to use it for what it's the most altruistic intended purpose.
It is. Yeah. To be careful.
Yeah.
So the first responder thing is really important to me. At that horse ranch, there was also a wellness seminar every year where they would have one day for law enforcement and then one day for fire. The first day I heard law enforcement, my chin just dropped to the ground. And they would do rotations of like different segments and breakout sessions for like 45 minutes or an hour. And I remember this was in the thick of Black Lives Matter, where cops had, you know, they were just getting shit on left and right. And there's still people. And yes, there's bad cops. There's bad everything. Bad doctors, bad postmen, bad, you know.
Priests. I mean,
yeah,
fill in the
everything.
blank.
Yeah.
I always ask people this. Like, if you were going to judge one particular occupation, first provide me an example of one that is pure.
Yes.
And you cannot.
So there's a therapist that's in front of these law enforcement, and she's like, okay, we're going to run the scenario. Just, I want you to call out what you respond to. You run to the edge of a cliff. There's a dog and a human. You can only save one. Who do you save? And the whole audience is like, dog. Like, crystal clear, all at once, dog. And I was just like, it was just like the hammer dropped. I was like, holy shit. And you think about it, it's like, because they just see the worst in humans. Yeah. The worst. And it's heartbreaking.
They respond every day, all day to people's worst case scenario.
Worst. And statistically, one of the speakers said, you know, shout out to Mike Carlton. He works the gang unit in Tempe. He's a retired sergeant. And he saw so much of a need for better mental health that he just stepped up as a leader, and he does presentations, and he really had a big impact on me. And he said, you know, an average human has 5 to 7 PTSD events in a lifetime. Okay. First responder in a 20-year, 25-year career has 400 to 500. So
that checks out from what I've seen anecdotally with my friends.
Yeah, you're just, as a first responder, you're not meant to process that much shit. And you get those type A's that just keep burying, they just keep burying. And to raise your hand and ask for help takes so much courage. And it doesn't always go well. Sometimes you're ostracized. Sometimes you don't get the promotion. Sometimes you get fired. And so for me, I was like, today I am here to fight for first responders and to share my story and to at least just give them maybe a couple different options and then talk therapy. You know, I was at one event where the therapist had a son that served in the military, was all fucked up, and she was the EAP counselor for the group. And I was like, not to call bullshit here, but like, you're the resource to help these guys, but like you can't even help your son. Like,
May not be a good or ethical approach to treat your own child.
true. And not everyone wants to do the work. So,
Yeah.
but to me, it just kind of outlined like we need better options. So while I was at that horse ranch, I got certified in horse therapy, equine therapy. I'm a big fan of it. And so one of the biggest reasons I think it's great is you're going to put your phone down, you're going to get into nature, you're going to see the sun, you're going to get some fresh air. And horses are incredibly intuitive, which I didn't really understand because they're like, oh, they're prey animals. Like something's going to take them down. I'm like what, a mountain lion? Like what's really going to take a horse
You can
down?
look a horse in the eyes and tell that there's more there.
Oh yeah, they can feel a fly drop out. Like they are so intuitive. So what's interesting about horse therapy is it gets you in nature, gets you grounded. You might do things like they'll say like, okay, what I want you to do in this arena is kind of just connect with the horse, maybe do a little grooming, whatever. It's like, I want you to build an obstacle course of your life. And you have all these like hula hoops and cones and like different things. They're like, take me through your life of 4 points, highs, lows, whatever you want it to be. Just build a little path and you're going to walk through with a horse and you're going to just take me through your life. And so some people do good stuff, bad stuff, whatever. Like I was, molested here, or somebody killed themselves here, or I got the best job ever here, like whatever it is. But it gives that therapist a little bit of a template, and you're not that one-on-one, in the therapist's office, like, tell me how you feel. Like, it's just very
You're not a
different.
clinical setting.
Yeah, it's very different. And the stories that come out are crazy. Like one is, one guy was doing a session for kids, and it was a group session. And for whatever reason, it was like this divine intervention day, and everyone canceled except this one girl. She's supposed to have closed-toed shoes, and she forgot. Her parents didn't, whatever. So they're like, all right, I guess we're still going to try the session or whatever. And so she's kind of quiet and timid. And so the horse ends up stepping on the corner of her toe and stays there.
They are not light.
No, not light at all. And horses are kind of know like to get off, they're super intuitive. So sitting there on her foot, and then, the guy's like, that horse's foot's on your foot. And she's like, yep. He's like, does that hurt? She's like, yeah, hurts a lot. It's like, is there somebody else that's hurting you right now? She's like, yep. It's just like, and then like another story where it was a husband, wife, child, pristine, perfect. They're just all the way buttoned up. Everything looks perfect. They come in for 3 sessions. First session, no one says a word. Little miniature pony comes by, shits on the dad's shoe. Nothing said. Family comes back. Nothing said again. Horse, little mini, shits on the dad's shoe.
I like this horse a lot.
Yeah. And I'm surprised. I was like, we're learning about like horse therapy and whatever. I'm like, and I'm looking at it as like huge failure. Like, no, you have to like talk about things on the first one. They're never going to come back. You're going to lose them. Like, that's what a failure. Like my mind was going in a very different direction. They're like, nope, let it play out. Let it play out. Third time happens again. And it turns out he's molesting the little girl. And it's just like, there's just stuff like that where it's like, you can't make that stuff up. Like there's just an intuition there. And it's, so for me, like if you're not into talk therapy, or if it's not working for you, like try horse therapy. It is pricey. It's usually like $250 an hour. However, there's tons of ranches that have first responder or military, might be free, might be a small copay. So I would always say, like, just do your research. Reach out to a couple ranches. Ask if they have scholarships. There's one woman in North Scottsdale. She's got a ranch. She's a former firefighter, paramedic. She's super religious and, spiritual into God and whatnot. And she went to kill herself. She went to this field to commit suicide. She was, in the thick of it. And so, and that day as she went to kill herself, all these wild horses came and surrounded her. And she's like, God told me, like, you're not going to kill yourself today. You're going to turn this around. And she turned that land into a ranch and now helps others. And just things like that, like you can't make up, So, and different ranches have different vibes. And you might not, just like therapists, you got to interview them. It's like dating. You got to go to 2 or 3. Like get different consults. Like some ranches have different vibes. Some are a little bougie. Some are a little hillbilly. Like you might have to go to a few different ones. So I'm big into horse therapy as an option. Psychedelics I'm into too, in the right setting.
Well, where did the psychedelics, your journey into that start? Was it pre-Montana or post?
Post, which is interesting. So Easter Island has always been my dream trip. I'm like, I'm going to go to Easter Island before I die for sure. They usually don't have direct flights. A lot of people do a layover in Peru. So I was like, oh, Peru, I'll probably do some ayahuasca, maybe like talk to some ancestors one day and then go to Easter Island. Like that's all I kind of thought about it. But while I was in Montana, 2 guys, one guy had previously gone to Mexico for Ibogaine and another was about to go. And it just like really sparked my interest. And I was like, interesting. I'd heard Rogan talk about Ibogaine a little bit. And for those that don't know, is in the stacking order, Ibogaine is like, they call it like the stern grandfather. It's like the strongest. You should be hooked up to EKG. There's cardio concerns. So you want to be in the right hands. And there are plenty of shady people that will take your money. You have to be so careful when you're in the psychedelic space. Like always go on a reference, someone that you know directly that you talk to. Don't Google, don't go to a website, don't talk to some shaman on the phone and be like, I got good vibes. Like, don't do that shit because there's a lot of bad players out there, a lot. So the Ibogaine thing piqued my interest and I was like, this is very interesting to me. And so I reached out to Dr. Martin Polanco, who does the Mission Within, stand-up doctor, awesome dude. I thought maybe I'll just volunteer in the kitchen just to kind of network, sort of like I did at Heroes and Horses, get some information. And the more and more I thought about it, I'm like, why don't you just try and handle your own shit? And so I did, and I had a very interesting experience. So with Ibogaine, you tend to see like visuals and it kind of comes in like a rotation and you might see it 3 times. So something might present itself 3 times. And they say that you can, if sometimes they're really dark trips, they're not fun, like death of the ego happens a lot. Like it can get dark or it can be beautiful. Ancestors can come to you. Like I've heard all different kinds of stories. So for me, I only had 2 images pop up. And so they say if you get spooked, like just like put your hands over your face. You have an eye mask on, or like put your blanket over your head just to kind of signify like I don't want to see this. I'm not into it. So I see this. The first vision I have is a super creepy skeleton, and he's in this gray business suit that's like falling off of him, and he has a clown mask on that is like dark and gnarly. He's got like bugs. He's like strung out clown, like super creepy. And he's like kind of floating towards me, and I'm like, oh fuck, this is like looking at his mask. I'm like, this is not good. This is not like the rainbow and puppy dog vibe. And he's trying to like pull his mask off, and you can't hear real well, but you'll hear like it's kind of blurry and fuzzy of like what the words are. And he's like going down like this. It kind of sounded, he was like saying like pull my tab, and I'm like, what is he saying? Like pull, and then I'm like, is he trying to like pull his zipper and like take his dick out?
On.
No, I swear to God, I was like, this motherfucker, put your dick away. No,
Yeah.
so I was like, I couldn't really understand, but I was like, I don't know what this is, and I was like, I don't want to see this. I'm like, I got spooked, and so kind of presented 3 times. I'm like, I'm not into this. Like, don't take the mask off. No. And then the second thing that I saw, the only thing that I saw was a 1970s style Wildland firefighter patch. And it was green and yellow, which are like the uniforms. And as soon as it kind of came in, I'm like, that's it. That patch right there is worth this whole experience, because I had just wrapped up in Montana, and I was dissolving Heroes and Horses of Arizona. I was in way over my head. It wasn't going to work out. I'm like, and I told the founder too, like it was the worst handoff like known to man. And it is what it is. But I was like, there's a 50% chance this is going to crumble. Like, I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm going to Montana. I'm learning from the pros, but like, I don't know how it's going to play out.
Some things are meant to be.
Totally. But it got me where I am, and, super grateful for the experience, but it was rough. But, so I saw that Wildland patch because I was like, should I just like rebrand and like do a new 501c3, or should I go back into Wildland? Like, I don't know which way to take this. And when I saw that patch, I was like, Wildland, like, you belong in the fires. So for me, that was huge, so big. And then fast forward to this summer, I had my first season stationed up in Utah in Heber City, stunning place. And like, there's a lot of suicide in Wildland. And a big reason is because you get laid off. And it depends on how you're hired, if you're seasonal or permanent. It's very complex. But you're going to have 13 weeks to 4 months off at least. But you are going from 100 at a fast pace, and you flip it into reverse on the same day. Like once the season ends, you do 14-day roll. They call them rolls. There's like a 14-day assignment, 14 hours a day or 16 hours a day. It is ground and pound. It is a young man's game. But you're just in the thick of it, and then all of a sudden you get laid off. And it's like, oh, go live your life. But it's like you just put your life on hold for 6 months. Like, you barely have time. You can only have, 3 days off between these 14-day rolls. Depends on the fire season. Last summer was super mild, so it's a little bit different. But you're either so busy, balls to the wall, like so tired, fatigued, everything goes on hold. Your personal life, your friendships, your finances, opening your mail, everything. And you're just dog tired. And everything suffers. And so when you get into this off season, if you don't have a life, or you're going through a divorce, or and the pay is shit. It might be going back to $12. There was a little bit of a Band-Aid where first year would get $15 an hour. I mean, you're making nothing, and you're sacrificing everything. Death is on the table. People die often. But the suicides are bad too. And it's like, this is not okay. Like, it's not okay. And I say the same thing about military. Like, these people that are willing to give their life, they need better things than a bullshit EAP, lame ass talk therapy session. It's not good. Like, this is not good enough. So for me, sharing my story, I'm like, I'm just trying to break trail. I am trying to give other options and share a story. Don't take those fucking pills. Don't take them. You're solving nothing. Tony Robbins just went on record saying that the SSRIs are doing nothing. It was on the cover of Newsweek. Like, it's like, you're not fixing anything. It's just a Band-Aid. You got to get to the root of the problem.
Have you considered that it's not the job that actually might be causing the damage, that they might have been damaged before the occupation and are drawn to it?
Yeah. And that's a big thing too, especially with the military, is unfortunately, like, a lot of shit happens in the military, deployments or whatever, and that's horrible. But a lot of times it's why did you get into the military? A lot of times it's childhood stuff.
Let's be honest here. The vast majority of the military, it is not their job to experience combat.
Yeah.
About 10%, maybe 15% of the military
That's lower than I realized.
has a job that is designed to engage in direct combat role. A small percentage of that 10% to 15% will actually do so. Yeah. The number of war-damaged veterans, I often feel like, exceeds the number of people who experienced war.
Yeah.
So is it the system or is it the person?
Could be.
I think both is the answer to a degree. I think that, the truth is, if there's A and C, B is probably a more applicable answer. But I think it's more complicated than do more than talk therapy, do more than the EMDR and don't take pills. I wish it was precise. I think it's far more blurry than that.
You got to dig into yourself. You have to have those, like, unfiltered, deep conversations that are not fun.
And if you don't, and you work your way into a job like the Wildland fire, and you end up making the horrible decision to end your life, Can that be held against the wild and fire occupation? Or is that a mechanism of if you don't deal with your trauma is going to deal with you?
Fair enough.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough at the end of the day. I would never say that those occupations don't leave a mark. Mm-hmm. My question is how much of a mark and what can be done with that? I feel like a better person and a better version of myself because of my military experiences, not a worse one. And I do know people that were destroyed by it. One of my closest friends. It's something that I wish people would talk about more. The negative side of the psychedelic rainbow, as I'll describe it. Mm-hmm. Hey, just go down here and do the dieta, take the medicine. What are the guys getting? They do usually ayahuasca paired with 5-MeO-DMT afterwards. Mm-hmm. Come back, do the work. Counselor, all these things, and they don't talk about the people that it doesn't help.
Yeah.
And a very close friend of mine and a very important mentor in my career went through multiple iterations of going to from what I've heard about Ibogaine, it's not a fun ride. I have zero experience with any psychedelics. Mm-hmm. But I have heard that it's not one that you would probably take if you were looking for a relaxing journey into, what did the therapist say to you? Maybe you pierce the veil. Pierce the veil of another fucking, dimension. Yeah. Probably Ibogaine's not the one to do that on. Mm-hmm. But he went back and back and back. And I know so many people who've said they go to these ceremonies and they'd never had the desire to drink again, or that changed their relationship with the substance that they were using. He had the exact opposite experience. He was drinking again within 72 hours and ended up taking his own life. Yeah. He was trying to do the work. And then you take a little deeper look at the person, and you could blame it on the military. You could blame it on his post-military experience. He didn't have the easiest laps around the track before all of that. And it's one of my concerns about psychedelics. It is so commonly focused on only the positive, these revelatory, earth-shattering, life-changing experiences. And that's not all it is.
It's not always good. And, we're in for a rough road because I've heard like in Portland, there's people charging $10,000 for a psilocybin trip. I'm like,
that seems insane.
That is so beyond greed. You should not be paying $10,000 for a mushroom trip. That is criminal. But
Aren't
it's already
mushrooms
happening.
legal there?
Yeah.
Couldn't they just go buy some mushrooms for, I don't know what mushrooms cost. I have no experience with them either, but I feel like it's less than 10 grand.
Yeah, they just, you're going to get bad players in the game. Yeah. I've heard horror stories of people in a tent in the corner, shitting themselves and throwing up with like no supervision, no integration before or after. Like there are a lot of bad players in this field, a lot. And so it's not for everybody. It's not. It comes down to you got to do the work.
So is the Wildland stuff what you thought it would be? Are you going to continue with it?
Yeah, I'd say at least 2 or 3 seasons. Not forever. I mean, I'm old. Like it is a young man's game.
You're as old as you think you are.
Yeah, but I'm keeping up. I can keep up. But I think the best thing to do is to wear the boots. And do peer support, and really understand what a season of wildland fire is like. And be an advocate for change and be the example. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is just kind of explain my journey and where I've been and the pitfalls, and just be an advocate for other options.
What would you recommend for the first responder world? What would you like to see them change about what is currently offered?
At least consider like equine therapy. Something different than, and I've been to therapists too, the one that's like pierced the veil. She's like, we don't really do a lot of first responders. Like they are tough cases. They talk about their brain scans and whatnot, and like the ring of fire where everything lights up, and they're tough cookies. And I just wish they had other options than, hey, go talk to somebody, because it's usually going to lead to pharmaceutical intervention, where it's like, let's just get you on a couple pills, or when you go to the VA, there are some nice VA doctors. I know one in Phoenix. She's awesome, but there's a lot of really bad ones. and they give the same menu where it's like, okay, let's get you some Ambien for sleeping. Let's get you some Adderall for up. Let's get you some Xanax to mellow out. Let's get you some Lexapro for those depressions. Oh, you got some cardio concerns. We'll throw, and it's like,
That sounds like hell on earth.
it
to
is
me.
one of the guys that came through in Montana. I knew this answer. He was on 32 pills a day. I asked him, I was like, how much did you pay for those prescriptions? He's like, 0. I was like, I knew he paid 0. I'm like, I personally, this is me being bitter Betty. I think the VA is a pill mill. I think you go through and you just get pills.
It can be.
Yeah.
One
Not
thing,
for everybody. There are
Yeah.
exceptions.
I've been known to talk shit about the VA from time to time. And what I don't do is a good job of painting the other side. There are a lot of people who've gotten fantastic care from the VA.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make the news.
Yep.
But the 32 pill guy who eventually decides that he's going to start a pistol instead
Yeah.
of brushing his teeth in the morning, that's going to make the news. And it's going to vilify the VA system writ large. And I don't know if the VA system deserves that necessarily. There have been some horrendous incidents where they fell short. But to use an example that you used, the Black Lives Matter movement that vilified the entire occupation of policing was not an accurate portrayal of
Yeah.
the occupation of policing. So I think we have to be really careful.
Yep.
Because unfortunately, negative stories and experiences seem to garner more attention than the positive.
Yeah. And you're going to get those victims too. I mean, there was a couple that came through Montana that summer. Nothing is perfect. So you're always going to have some fails here and there. But one guy in particular was, military and then went on to be a firefighter. And he ended up leaving early and he was a little bitch. Like just whining about every single thing, posting, talking shit on this is a waste. Like, it's just like,
But probably goes from program to program to program
Exactly.
to program. He's a professional, broken person.
yeah, he's a professional victim and he's never going to change. And you'll see that in the psychedelic space. You'll see that in the talk therapy. Like some people get that victim label and they really just want attention. They're probably lonely and my heart breaks for them. That sucks.
Yeah.
But like running this victim is not helping anybody. It's not. So I think you got to do the work, whether you like it or not.
It's a
And
true story.
how you do that is your business. But I just wish that for first responders especially, they had other options. And not even first responders, like dispatch. They get so overlooked. They're answering phones all the time. I knew a lady that she would drive around and she'd be like, oh yeah, there was a murder there and then a stabbing there and then a suicide there and then somebody killed their dog. And they never know the end of it. Like they just answer the call and they say things they really don't want to hear. Like, oh, I just shot my wife. It's just like, and they don't know how it plays out. Like, did the wife die? Did she make it? Like, the first responder world breaks my heart. And these people they're dialed into this community. It's where their kids go to school. It's where their house is. It's where their community is. So for them to raise their hand takes so much courage. And to get shot down or it's devastating. People are like, well, just find a new job. It's not that easy. It's not that easy.
It's not that easy, but I'm also not going to blame the infrastructure completely.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of conversations, with veterans specifically. Like, what is the role of the military? How much should they be responsible on somebody's departure?
Mm-hmm.
Are they even capable of providing what may be needed? And I land on, I don't think they are, because they're not designed to do so, which is the same thing for not coming from the world, but it appears to be there are some similarities in the first responder military world.
Yep.
So who does that leave it with? There's the individual. Mm-hmm. The military, thankfully, has an almost endless supply of NGOs, non-government organizations, or service-based organizations that are there and ready to help, which can be gamed, and that's how you can end up with the professional victim.
Yep.
In my experience, from what I have seen, first, if you recognize that you need more, you can find it. but it's probably not going to come from inside of your organization. But I bet you there is an organization that exists in that world between, I'll use the military, discharge from the military, integration into the VA, and the non-government organization or service-based organization. Maybe that even sits in between military, service-based, VA.
Yeah.
I think the last stat I saw, there's over 40,000 service-based organizations.
Yep. And some of them are just like concert tickets.
Some of them are, but
Yeah.
but a lot of them aren't. And I don't want to quantify and say, well, most people don't take the time or this, that, or the other. A lot of the times, the person who needs the help the most is not actually looking for that solution in and of themselves. They want it presented to them. They want it done for them. And that's not the recipe. And my heart breaks for the first responders because I have a bunch of friends who are in the first responder world. One of the things that I usually ask them, we have conversations about this too, like, hey man, do you have a social circle outside of work? A lot of times the answer is no.
Yeah.
And that's where I start people when they ask me for advice about these occupations. Like, how can I do this and not burn out? I love doing this. I love being involved. I love giving back. Like, try to have a social circle outside of work because if you come from the world I came from, it was insidious in nature, not intentionally.
Yep.
All day at work, and then my same social circle was the guys afterwards. So what would we do after work? We'd fucking hang out and drink and talk about work.
Yeah.
So it was a work-work balance, not a
Yeah.
work-life balance. And you can lose yourself in that. And being proactive.
Yep.
I don't know where we got to this place where you only go and seek help when you realize you're standing on the abyss and you're about to fall into it. Maybe take your car in for an oil change before the transmission locks up. You know, it's there. The help is out there. There are people who will bend over backwards and give you everything that they have to help you, but they don't know who needs help unless that help is asked for.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're so dialed in, if that's your only world, you're so scared to lose it, or to get ostracized.
Yeah, but
But you do need to branch out.
Well, let's lay out some options. You're afraid of being ostracized. You're afraid of losing your job, but you're not afraid of putting a gun in your mouth and leaving your family and friends and loved ones behind. That's not right. That's not an objective look at the things that are actually in front of you. If my choice was for my kids and they came to me and said, God, I love my job, but if I keep doing it, I'm going to kill myself, I would fucking stop everything that I was doing to try to figure out something else that they could do. I mean, explore every other option. And who cares how much you love the job? I bet your friends, family, and loved ones would rather have you around than be able to introduce you as Bob the fireman or first responder or paramedic or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
No. I heard a cop at a wellness seminar explain, he's like, you got to remember, suicide, you're not trying to kill yourself. You're trying to stop the pain. And the pain is that bad. It's like, and you're
passing that pain on to other people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate everything that you do in the first responder world, especially the letters that you read, the people that come on. Those stories are helping more people. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for
of course.
all of that. It really means a lot. You have a wide range of people and discussions, and I think it's awesome. But I just lost my point of thought. But yeah, it's incredibly valuable of everything that you're doing, and it's appreciated.
How are you going to know it's time to stop doing psychedelics? How far are we going to go down the rabbit hole?
Yeah, I have.
You going to put like beads and shit in your hair and carry around a cane and like look like a female Gandalf and like guide people through the Hobbit Shire? I mean, how far are we going to go with this?
Yeah, he has to be careful. So I'm hopefully going to land on a helicopter team this summer for fire. It's kind of coming together. There's a few things brewing. I'll probably know in the next 4 weeks or so. But I do have a trip to Peru where I'm doing 3 weeks. It's women's group isolation in a hut.
Sounds like a recipe for violence.
Yeah, 9 ayahuasca ceremonies. It's
Did you know?
deep.
You want to hear a stat that doesn't make any sense to me? The highest cohort of individuals, couples, when it comes to domestic violence are lesbian couples.
Really?
Yeah. You know what that means? Women are fucking crazy.
Yeah, certifiable. 100%.
Michael, don't double check that because I might have made that up.
Yeah.
You're just going to lock yourself in a tent with women
case.
and do 9 ayahuasca ceremonies?
Yeah.
How do you, I mean,
Yeah.
why that many? How do you know that 2's not enough?
It could be. Yeah.
But how would you know it? Because you're obviously paying for 9, so I bet you're going to do 9.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a part of me is like and then after that I go into the fire season and it's all, you just
assuming that you're able to walk, talk, and act like a human being after 9 of those things.
We'll see if I make it out. But
what do you want to get out of that? That seems to me to be very aggressive.
It is. It is full throttle. For me, I can't shake this B+ syndrome. I have really analyzed where the fear in my life is. Mm-hmm. And the first time I went into the Wildland Academy, I let go of the fear of death. I'm like, you're going to have to be comfortable with death and possibly dying. I'm like, okay, I'm okay if I die.
So you're not afraid of dying?
No. I don't want to die, but I'm okay with it.
You should not be doing any wildland fire then. Fear of death is a natural mechanism that is telling your body to pay attention about what's going on because it has a high consequence and high risk. I was always terrified when I was base jumping. Like you're zipping up your suit and you're getting ready and you're at fucking max heart rate and your mouth is dry and you're terrified. My no-go would be if I ever got to a place where I wasn't like that, I was going to walk away from it because it means I'm not paying attention. It means I am not objectively looking at the situation and making decisions that are going to sustain my life versus doing something dumb that's going to take my life. There's nothing wrong. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think that there are any SEALs out there that are actually not afraid of death? They ask us to do some wild shit. I don't want to actually go in the field with somebody that says to me, I'm not afraid of death. 1, you're probably lying. 2, if you are actually not afraid of death, you're a sociopath because it means the natural alarm bells in your body are not working properly. I would sit with that one for a bit.
Yeah.
You can accept and understand the risk associated with your job, but it's a natural thing to be afraid of death. It's about what you do with that fear, not erasing it.
It's a good perspective. I get that. Yeah. I think, so the first year I really analyzed like fear, death, where that comes in. Second year I really went into money. I let go of the need for money, of chasing it. Of course money is helpful. It's not like I'm like, I don't need
Makes
money.
the world go round a little bit.
Yeah,
like,
need a little bit.
I like to eat.
Yeah, food is good. Yeah, so but where I need to work on is love. Like I am pretty blocked of just not quite being good enough. And like that's where I really need to do the work. And I have been.
What does the ayahuasca provide for you in that realm though?
A lot of love, like loving yourself, accepting yourself, knowing that you're good enough, like a lot of internal love.
It provides that love for you or tells you that you need those things?
I think it kind of points you in that direction, like, and it helps you really realize that like you have to love yourself more. Like you are, and you hear this a lot where it's like you're constantly beating yourself up. Like you love everybody else except yourself. Like, why don't you just love yourself?
So it sounds like you already know what you need to work on. Why does being told that 9 more times increase the likelihood that you'll be successful doing the work?
I think there's a part of me that just, there's so much noise in the world right now of like social media and this and that. And I'm like, I just want to take a time out and really just get into my shit. Like, why do you really think you're not good enough? Why do you really think, and I had in college, I had a roommate every year, and they always had eating disorders. And I would always be around guys who'd be like, Kara, I got to talk to you. I'm like, yeah, what's up? They'd be like, you got to hook me up with your roommate. It was like, I was always like the Ginger Marianne syndrome, and like, I was like, God damn it, they always want the hotter girl, So I just think like, my parents divorced, Dad had an affair, we're all good now and everything's fine. But like, I think that has a little bit of like, if my mom was a little bit better, Dad wouldn't have had that. Or, of like, oh, if you're a little bit skinnier, like the college girls, then you I think there's some work to do on being good enough. And it's something I have to really work on.
And the ayahuasca or Ibogaine allows you to access that space to do the work?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again,
I think so.
zero experience with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's,
Because I feel like you've,
Yeah.
I mean, again, and somebody with no experience, I
Yeah.
feel like you've identified the path forward.
yeah. I think for me, the isolation to just really like no phones, phone shut off, like just sit with it.
You know you can do that now, right?
Yeah. True.
The stuff you're talking about, social media and the anxiety from that, it's a voluntary ecosystem.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying it's easy to put it down because again, it's pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
I have connected with people that I haven't talked to in years.
Yeah.
And then I get into arguments with idiots that I don't know.
Yeah.
Or for shit I don't care about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like being Santa Claus at the mall and you have like a line 50 deep of kids, but instead it's just people that want to shit on you. Like, you're racist, you're fat, you're old, you're ugly. It's just like, okay, next.
I would consider getting in that
like,
line, actually.
Yeah. Like,
I would volunteer to sit on the chair and be like, fuck you. Hold on, I got something in my pocket. Fuck you. Yeah.
yeah. I just was having and I'm not even on social media, but I mean, LinkedIn, that's not really social media, but I mean, some people might say it is, but whatever.
I don't know
But yeah,
what LinkedIn's
I don't read
for.
comments it's just a business. I don't know. But
How will you know when it's time to stop?
I think this is going to be it with Peru.
Well, hold on, though. What criteria
Yeah.
will let you know when it's time to stop? Because the easiest thing to say is, I think it's going to be this one. I'm not there yet. I think
Yeah.
it'll be the next one.
Yeah.
How will you know?
That's a good question. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's something to think about. I know it ends in March when
Yeah.
the fire season picks up, and that'll be a good 7 months of nothing,
Yeah.
just grinding back and fire. But I'm hoping that I've tried on enough shoes to help others too, where it's like, okay, this was my journey. Like I did this, or this helped me, or this didn't, and just to kind of be able to speak to that.
It's fair.
Yeah.
And I'm asking for my
Yeah.
own curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Psychedelics scare the living shit out of me.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
I don't want to be on the cult circuit. You see that, people are going one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and it's never going to end. And
Yeah, the next thing you know, you're locked in a room with 9 women doing Ibogaine, Weird.
yeah. I hope Peru is it. Like maybe a little maintenance here and there. Hopefully not, but I don't know. But I do know that
Maybe sit
yeah.
with it and
Yeah.
define your finish line.
Yep. Yeah. What does the win look like?
What's the goal? Where do you want? What's
Yeah.
the objective that you want to achieve? Because not that would solve any or all problems,
Yeah.
but if you don't know where the end zone is, you can't really score a touchdown. And then if you're the one moving the yard line, to use a metaphor of a sport
Sure.
I know almost nothing about because I just don't. Apparently, it's the playoffs for football.
Yeah.
My dad was telling me that. I was like, that's odd. I didn't even know it was football season. Thank you for let me know who wins the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Defining an end state or a goal,
Yeah.
maybe that can help with deciding when to move on to the next.
And a big thing for me is finding a life partner. That's a big one. And I just heard your wife.
She's the best.
I love the way that you just love on her. It's so cool. It gives me such hope that there is goodness out there. And I see it in a few friends and whatnot, but not enough.
I think the biggest thing that Leah helped me with when I went through my divorce, which was horrendous. And I'll say in the same breath, I'm sure it was for my ex-wife as well. I am not trying to paint myself as somebody who got
Yeah.
the short end of the stick. There's 2 people, one on each side of that equation. But that was the time in my life where I had the lowest view of who I was as a person. And I would sit there and ask myself, am I actually worth being with somebody? Would anybody want to be with me? Mm-hmm. Do I bring any value to anything? Like my kids, am I a good enough person to be an example for my kids? Am I a good enough person to even be a father for my kids? I think the most valuable thing that Leah has done for me or did for me during that time period was changing the way that I talk to myself
Yeah.
and showing me that I was in fact good enough to be of value to somebody else. It's a fucking
Yeah.
dark place to be.
Stuff. And that's my biggest battle. Is I'm at this point in life where, and I remember too, trying to date as the Pharma rep, where it's I didn't feel authentic. And it's
Yeah.
like, how are you going to fall in love when you don't even love yourself and you love your life? And so I'm trying to really, really, really be as authentic and as loving to myself, love myself all the way through of what I stand for, what my career path is, what I'm doing in life.
Yeah.
And I have such an open slate doing the van life, and I'm kind of, in the gypsy mode, but like I would love to build a life with a partner. And now that money is not a big part of my life, like that really kind of opens the door to awesome guys that I've probably overlooked.
Yeah.
So I think, the short answer would be like, oh, if I get, life partner, husband, for sure that would be the end of, that would be the goal. But I don't want that just to be like, okay, once I get married, then we're done. But I would say, finding a partner would be a huge win for me. But I've got to just knock it off with this B+ shit. It's like, you are good enough. Like, not every guy is going to look for the better deal. I think dating apps are just detrimental on both sides, like
Don't participate in it.
I quit dating 2 years ago, and I've
That's probably not going to help you find your life partner.
no,
but I mean,
no, probably not. No,
I'm looking
but,
for a life
yeah,
partner. I'm in
yeah,
this fucking
yeah,
closet by myself, and I'm like really having a hard
meeting
time
anyone.
meeting people.
Yeah. I did a year sober, like just like no dating, nothing, like just get into yourself and like really dial in and like just love yourself, like love who you can become,
What if you can't get to that place?
I think I'm pretty close. I'm really hoping Peru like really solidifies it.
I ask because I don't think perfection is possible.
No.
And you're setting a high standard for yourself, which I think everybody absolutely should.
Yeah.
But I think it's okay to not be perfect.
Absolutely.
But you have to be able to look in the mirror and be comfortable with that. And the only advice I would give you is don't look for somebody that you think is going to complete you, because I
No.
don't think it's like that. I think at
Never.
best you can be two puzzle pieces that actually fit together,
Yep.
but you can't expect somebody else to provide for you what it is that you're looking for in yourself. I think that
No.
in the long run, that doesn't work.
No. It's a compliment, not a completion.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Have you ever considered that you are good enough?
Yeah. But like not
Just
all the way.
No.
Yeah.
That first part of the answer was the only part you needed.
Yeah.
Now you just got to work on taking a pair of scissors to the rest of that sentence.
Yep.
I'm not so sure Ibogaine's going to do that for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done a lot of
Especially in the lesbian Thunderdome. I mean, which is that?
Oh,
Please
yeah.
tell me that's the name of the retreat.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm just checking. It's fantastic marketing. Michael's researching it right now and signing up.
He's ready to go.
Yeah, Hisham.
Yeah. That would be the goalpost though, I think.
Yeah, what are you going to do when you meet somebody who is like, you're the most amazing person that I've ever met? How are you going to justify that with how you talk to yourself?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, they've got to be a friend first. Just that's the only way you can vet them. How do they treat their friends? Are they dating 10 chicks? Like, I don't want to be number 9 in rotation. That happens a lot. Chicks do it too.
Yeah.
Chicks do it too. So for me, it's like, got to be a friend first, and then can really build from there and then see where it goes.
What if you meet some hot dude first? He's like, I don't know, like this friendship thing sucks. Was hoping for a little bit more.
Yeah. Go get it, dude. Over there. Not here.
Okay. It's a weird approach.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously do like a record check on them to make sure they don't have a history of pulling their dick out on people, because
Yeah. We don't need
the
that.
statistical likelihood of you encountering that is way fucking beyond the norm. I don't understand how that has happened.
I don't know.
What have we not covered on your robust series of notes? You haven't even looked at it a single time.
I know, right? I've been doing
Take a look
pretty
at it.
good.
Did we not get
Okay.
anything?
Let's see. I'd say one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from the academy, from one of the instructors that said, because there's a lot of death, and when that happens, there's a lot of this, finger pointing, like,
Yeah.
well, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. And it was stand tall in the truth.
Yes.
And that's probably one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten. And I've used it at least 15 times in the last couple of years. And it's like whenever you have anxiety or you're taking a big risk or something's not feeling right, it's like, no, just take a deep breath, stand tall in the truth. And so that was a big one.
Okay.
I didn't talk about Kareem. I just have a connection to the 13 that passed in the Afghanistan withdrawal. One of my college roommates was
At the airport?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my college roommates taught him, Kareem, and his younger brother, Steven. And that withdrawal was heartbreaking.
It was, but what I'll add to that is people love to blame it on the Biden administration, and it was shit planning and execution for multiple administrations before that.
Oh, yeah. Both sides.
He's responsible
sides.
for the decisions he made in the chair while he was the president, and everybody else is responsible for the decisions they made leading up to it as well.
Yep. Yeah. So Kareem, so I knew when he passed, it was sad. You know, my girlfriend's like, here's a foundation if you want to donate. You know, he was my student. It was heartbreaking. But while I was in Montana, this was super crazy. I couldn't stop thinking about him one day. And I was like, I can't stop thinking about him. And like, we finished all the stuff that day, and I Googled him and like took this screenshot of a picture I'd never seen of him. And it was August 9th, and it was the day that his older brother, went to his gravesite and killed himself. And I'm just like, the fact that, like, how did I think of that? You know, it was crazy. And then fast forward 2 weeks later, I forgot the actual withdrawal is either August 21st or 26th. I'm forgetting the date.
Can you look that up, Michael?
But on that day, I was in Montana, Micah's ranch, and I was like, how can I honor, this day, this anniversary? It's really big. And it was like kind of rainy, and the storm passed, and all of a sudden there's this huge double rainbow. And I was like, holy shit. And in my resignation letter in my pharma days, I wrote this letter. And do you remember the double rainbow guy? He went viral like 10, 15 years ago.
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, this guy was like, he's like super chubby. He was either in Yellowstone or Yosemite. He was a previous firefighter and just pulled the ripcord, ran into the woods, and so one day he's sitting in his trailer, like beat up shack, and he looks out and he sees this double rainbow, and he records it, and he's like, double rainbow, like it just went viral. It's hilarious.
I certainly have not seen that.
Yeah, I will have to send it to you, but like it's just something I connected to, and I was like, he's the firefighter that just pulled the ripcord and ran away, and so he ended up dying in COVID, which was sad, but to see that double rainbow in the ranch at Montana, like it just brought so much to me. So I just have a big connection to the Afghanistan withdrawal, to veterans, and then also first responders. But
August 30th was the final day, it looks like. Feb 29 to August 30th.
Yeah. So just a sad day.
It is.
I mean, every day is a sad day, but there's
Why?
good days too. But
Why is every day a sad day?
just the suicides, that just breaks my heart. It breaks my fucking heart.
Yeah, but are you going to let that be bricks on your shoulders, or are you going to use that as a fire to change who you are and what you can do with what you want to do?
The latter, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
why I'm here today. As I was leaving Pharma, I'm like, I just know my life's purpose is to fight for first responders.
It's interesting you bring that up, though. I mean, every day could absolutely be a sad day for everybody, because you could find something that would rob you of your ability to want to do anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest mistake people can make. The suicides, I don't understand how people come to a place where they make an irrational decision and it seems rational to them. I think I have an understanding of how you can get to that point.
Yeah.
Never been there myself, so I can't talk about it from a first-person perspective. But I think the bigger question is how do you do something meaningful with those actions that they took and not forget them? And it's not by every day being a sad day. It's by becoming the best version of yourself humanly possible and not ruminating on the fact that every day could be a sad day.
Yeah.
And living your life to your fullest. Because from the military world, if people, you can pick any day. Soldiers have been killed every single day of the calendar year, to include on leap year. So you could spend your day only looking backwards and, today I'm going to mourn this person. It's, maybe go live your best life and realize that they gave all of their tomorrows so you could have today and live your life that way, as opposed to the weight and burden of guilt and shame.
True.
It's tough,
Yeah. Be the example.
but you have to do something with it.
Agreed.
What else you got on that paper?
Um,
Where on there is the guys with their dicks out? Show me. That should be an entire page.
Probably is.
I'm actually considering framing that behind Michael.
Oh, you can.
He would appreciate it.
You can have it. What
Well, no,
else?
just the
Yeah.
section about the guys with the dicks out. I was going to blow that up and put it in a...
Oh, I would say if you are passing by Boise, Idaho,
Boise?
they have a Wildland Firefighter Foundation. They do an awesome job supporting the community more than the government. They have pictures of every fallen wildland firefighter. They do a tremendous job of helping the community. It's a little sad, a little heavy. I go there after the academy every year to put some respect in there and put some love on them. But it's run by Burke Miner. He's an awesome dude. His mom started it after a fire killed 14 firefighters, and she saw the need and kind of stepped up. So they're doing great things. If it's somebody that if you feel a connection. They also have on YouTube a series, Warriors of the West, and it's like 6 series that maybe 8-10 minute video, but it just kind of chronicles the life of a wildland firefighter, little things that they do. So they're just doing good things. So I want to give a shout out to them.
Right on.
And I think that's about it.
Well, we have been at this for like 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Goes fast.
What do you want to close it out with?
So look for the love. That's a big thing that happens in the psychedelic world is like love.
Oh, I know.
Well,
they won't shut the fuck up about it.
Yeah.
Embrace the love of the goddess. Embrace your feminine divinity. And it's like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about, but...
Yeah. I'm guilty of getting stuck on the anger. The anger can fuel you. You get this rage, and you're like, let's do something. And it's like, let's just like switch gears and like, let's go for the love, like lean into the love, be the helper, be the good person. Don't be so fucking bitter. I was getting super bitter towards the end of Pharma, and it was like just really at myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just say look for the love.
Okay. Do you have that website yet?
Of
lookforthelove.com?
Oh, not yet.
I mean, this is a business idea, real time. I mean, I'm going to have Michael buy that shit like in the next 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you're not on social media. If people do want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, assuming I don't get kicked off. I did get a no letter.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd you do?
I just pushed the envelope of like what you could say. And as I was leaving my old life.
What did you say?
Don't be a dick.
Oh, no, I've definitely said that on there.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, you don't know exactly what it was, but they just gave me this letter and I reposted it and I apologize. I said, your house, your rules. I get it. So, but my door is always open to first responders or military. If you want to just throw out some questions to equine therapy or psychedelics, just get some information. I don't read comments. So to the people that leave nice ones, thank you. To the people that leave shitty ones, fuck you too.
Yeah.
But I do read the DMs. So
okay. On LinkedIn?
Yep, on LinkedIn.
All
Which
right.
most people really don't really send them. But if they're like, hey,
I think you have to pay for them at some point.
I think you have to be a connection. I always
I
accept
don't fucking
connections. So yeah. But I would say if they want any insight, doors always open. Just send me a DM on LinkedIn while I'm still there, and
Fair enough.
that's all I got.
You ready to go brave the Montana blizzard?
Yeah.
Which I am curious to see what it looks like when we leave.
I know. We had a hard time. We had canceled flights.
Yeah.
Airbnb pipes froze. Almost tipped over on the way here. We're
You're
like,
better,
yeah.
you're glad you should be
Yeah.
glad you weren't here like 4 days ago. It was legitimately negative, like 33, 35 with some wind chill.
Yikes.
It's not the best.
No.
It's not the best. But also, you'd be surprised how many people are out there just kind of living their life.
Yes.
Fewer joggers during those times.
Yeah.
So,
Makes sense. Yes.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Of course.
Appreciate everything you do. Thanks for the love for
Don't
first
do that much.
responders.
Let's back
and
off on the love stuff, right? I'm a little bit more of the anger fan. So.
There you go. Get better. Thank you.